We're actually somewhat in screen. What's up, everybody? This is KARAK with ACG, and I'm here with Abzy doing the Wednesday Best Gaming Podcast number 454. 454.
Yo,
454 is
nice.
a good number. It feels
It's a
good.
good number, dude. Yeah, good number, good day.
Feels
Happy
good. Sorry if my
times.
lighting's a little bit off, but in the midst of all the reviews and stuff, I haven't had a big chance to like go around and clean up the room and get it prepped for a podcast, so things are going to be even sketchier than normal.
Oh,
Sketchy.
shit.
Questionable. Sketchy. Of questionable quality.
Scuffed podcast.
Thus why it's the best. Yeah. What have you been playing, by the way?
Nothing, man. I beat what's it called? I beat Final Fantasy yesterday. What was it? Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday.
Oh.
No, 2 days ago, actually. I beat it 2 days ago. I
Rebirth,
did everything.
Right? Yeah, Rebirth, of
Yeah,
course. Sorry.
I did. So this is like the best example of why I'm not like super, fixated on 100%ing something, right? Because I was doing everything. I was playing everything because it was enjoyable. And then the last side quest came around and it's like, fuck this shit. It showcases like all the jank in the combat. You know, there's some fights in that game because the combat largely, I love it. I love the idea of it. It's like a great mix of strategy and skill, like just like on your feet type thing. Like it's a really, really good combat system, but there's some fights, man. There's some fights that really showcase like bad design decisions in the combat. Like there's some really like frustrating shit. Like remember we talked about like how Neo, there's some really hard bosses you struggle for like 30, 40 times, but they're not frustrating. You're like, okay, I can do better. I can go back in. I can beat the boss.
Yeah.
No, and this one, some of them, I'm not even talking about difficult ones. Like some difficult ones were great, but there's some fights that just showcase some really bad shit in the combat.
The worst of the worst.
So, yeah. So that last side quest was just like, yeah, fuck you. So I did every single thing except the last side quest, and I'm completely fine. My OCD isn't kicking in. I'm completely happy. I enjoyed the game. I beat it. I think largely it's a really, really good game. Minus, I've always said I wasn't a fan of the writing of this game, of like these games, like Final Fantasy 7. And yeah, I didn't like, there's a lot I didn't like. I liked some of it, like in the story, but I largely played the game because of the gameplay. There's like my favorite character was Barrett. I think I already said that. There's like really good arcs with him. But other than that, there's some like especially like I'm not gonna spoil where I don't think it's good or like say anything about any if it's like the intro or ending or anything. But like there's like I didn't like some of it like story wise, basically. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I had a great time. I have a fun ass game. Definitely my money's worth. I put in 110 hours. I beat it. Yeah, I beat it in 110 hours, and yeah, it was a great experience. I really liked a lot of the mini games. It felt like a grand adventure. There was a lot of camaraderie. Again, combat was for the most part really, really fun, and it's really fun like slotting different things and trying different stuff and just like fixating on one character at a time and trying to be better at them. And really, yeah, really fun game. Really, really enjoyable game. Yeah.
I think overall they did a pretty good job, but also that Final Fantasy VII, even rewritten, is still a child's storyline. It's got adult elements in it for sure, like environmentalism and stuff like that, but it's not really written for adults in the same way. It's not written for, it's...
Yeah, like there's some themes that definitely hit. There's some themes there that definitely hit, but there's some weird, just say like, there's a bit too much Kingdom Hearts in this, all right? Let's just say that, okay?
That's probably true.
A bit too much, man. Just like there's some moments that were better left alone. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with like admitting that. I know that some people consider them sacrosanct. They're like, oh, this is the excellence of execution, but it's really not. I mean, they're just really enjoyable games. I think they did a pretty good job, more than most companies can do with remakes. They've continued, and they definitely improved on the last one. I think Rebirth is like a great deal better than Remake.
100%. It makes Remake feel. You remember Ground Zeroes for Metal Gear Solid 5? That's basically how Remake feels to Rebirth for sure. It feels like they've worked more on Rebirth before remake comes out, and just this, like, you know what I mean? It kind of feels like
Yeah.
they worked way more on Rebirth because it was like only a 3-year time span between remake and Rebirth. Yet when between the time they announced remake to its release, it was like a long time, right? So I feel like they must have worked on, because it's incredible how much content it has and how much varied content. Like you're like, what the fuck? This is in the game like every 2 seconds, right? So it's awesome for sure.
Yeah, it's got a lot of the tropes that you would expect from a Final Fantasy game as well as an RPG, but it's also, I mean, it steps up some stuff. I would say that whenever it tries to get too serious is when it's the worst.
Yeah, and some dialogue moments, like some dialogue writing, just doesn't really hit, man. They're very campy, but like not in a fun Resident Evil way. Kind of just like a wait, what? Or like even in the very intro of the game, where it's like there's 3 people holding up guns and no one shoots the guy. The guy just comes and kills all. It's like, dude, just shoot the guy. There's some stuff like that, like some weird plot holes or character holes and shit. But again, I think some arcs are definitely really well written. Well, comparatively. But yeah, some of the story decisions they made definitely didn't work for me.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for joining us. If you get a chance, check out the Patreon or become a YouTube member where you still get patron access. We'll be all streaming Dragon's Dogma 2 because it's not a heavy story. We're all going to jump in on Friday and do a bunch of different people streaming and probably playing different vocations, which will probably be anarchy, but it does help the channel when you do so, and thanks to the members who become so. I will say with Final Fantasy also that when I'm playing Final Fantasy, I'm not looking for, it's hard to describe. I'm not looking for Witcher 3. Like, you have to go into that game just sort of knowing what it's trying to offer. Also, one thing people aren't realizing is what makes sense in a 2D game may make jack all shit sense in a 3D game, like a cutscene with 2 characters who aren't shooting. When, if you see like characters pointing a gun at a person, you only have, on a 2D plane, you really only have a thought process that's like, these characters are aiming.
That's a good point.
But when you get 3D and you see a cliff next to him, in your brain, you're like, why is he not leaping off the fucking balcony, man? Where, like, what's happening? And so as a developer, I bet you it must be a bitch to look at an old game, and after everything is said and done, somebody puts the cutscene up, and you look at it and you're like, oh shit, this made sense in 2 dimensions. It does not make sense in 3 dimensions. Like what somebody says or what somebody does just doesn't make sense. There's all that kind of stuff that'd be
That's
fun
a really
to work
good point,
on.
yeah, because you have that 3rd dimension where,
but it would be fun.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? I like coming in each day and going like, okay, we need to hire somebody to fucking find out if this makes sense here. Does the story even make sense anymore in industry-wise, or not industry-wise, but world-wise? Because some of the best books I've ever read were pro the Berlin Wall falling. And then you're reading a book where they're like Russia versus America, and you're all, what? You know, for a full 25 years, that wasn't a thing. It's a thing now. It's definitely a Cold War now, but it was, you know, it was gone for a while. It was like, you know, people were marrying Russian brides as often as possible. Probably still are.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, hey, nothing wrong with it. You do you, people.
You do you.
Let's see. Looking in here, I'll get to super chats later if there are any, as well as patron stuff. We're going to talk about Dragon's Dogma. We're going to talk about Rise of Ronin. We're going to talk about the PS5 Pro specs. And prep yourselves. If we're not, in particular, I am not, but I can only speak for myself. I don't believe Absy is at all. But I'm saying in particular, I'm not a fan of anything. I'm just going to report the specs and what I think of them. So if you expect a hug when we're talking about your favorite console, you may want to buckle your shit belts.
Uh-oh.
Michael says when he goes to prison in Coral and he meets the prison boss gangster, and he's just some corny little guy that dances around, I was like, oh my God.
Oh man. Yeah. Some characters. Although they did make Rude. I love Rude. They made Rude a lot better. I love that guy.
I think they added a couple characters that were good. They did a good job with the characters that most of the characters that they added in. It's been like I said, man, for remakes, it's got to be, it fucking must suck to wake up and be like, okay, we've got the biggest game of all time, one of the biggest games of all time, right? I'm sure it's one of the biggest games of all time.
Absolutely. I mean, FF7, like everybody, even who don't really play games, know about it, right? Yeah.
Even if it's a genre-defining game. Yeah, the idea of being like, okay, everybody, got the biggest game ever, let's sit down and remake it, and then somebody, let's say, listens to the first thing a character says, and they're all, "Oh my god, this is dated. This is from
I mean, you can feel that,
25 years
right?
ago." Oh yeah, you can,
you can feel that. Yeah.
And they did a pretty good job keeping it, keeping some of the stuff I guess some of it feels dated, but they did a pretty good job sometimes messing around with it, so it felt a little modern.
And a little topical, right? Sometimes they hit on some topical
a little
stuff.
too topical, because I was going to mention about the 9th time the two chicks lean in with their breasts showing and stare at you. I'm just like, I get it. I know what this game's made for, but it's a little creepy because also 2D wise, those characters look like kids. What's that art style? Chubby or whatever the fuck it's called?
Chibi Chibi.
Then you get a 3D, right? And you get these guys looking all rocking, and they're built, and they got their fucking swords like, car bumpers. And they look young in the face, but then it gets weird when there's 3D involved and very, very feminine character. By the way, I don't mind weird. I'm just saying weird. Like, you can admit someone's weird and still be like, hey, that's... Tifa is she is not spectacularly ugly. That is for sure.
We all know what bathing suit we got for her. So
yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, and look at what happened with. I was just talking to somebody who was doing Starfield, and in Starfield, I think there's only 2 places you can get a swimming suit without a fight happening. There's 2. Like, there's one place where you can sneak in, and there's something else. But a random player, found some remote location in the middle of nowhere that just found this month that has a single swimsuit, and the thirst from gamers to find that swimsuit location so they can put a swimsuit on, Androstenine or whatever her name is really high. Like, people are like leaping for it. They're all, dude, I gotta get that. I gotta go to this place. I gotta get. Hopefully, your seed is the same as everybody else's. But they were all wanting to go there so they could get the swimsuit. So horniness is high, man. Like, that's why extreme volleyball needs to come back.
I feel like ever since okay, so we did hear about like people being mad about remember when. Before the horniness, I feel like it was like a more classy type of horny where everyone wanted like a romance option in like every RPG, right? And they complained about like Anthem not having one. And now I think since BG3, it's like, we need to see sex. We need to see titties. Yeah. Witcher 3 didn't have that same effect, I don't think, right?
You know what's creepy too? If you look at psychology, it never ever returns back to the simple curve either, meaning if it goes aggressively towards sex, it will never return to romance. So
yeah, they want it's like they need 60 FPS,
Yeah, right. Boobs are nothing. It's 60 FPS, and now boobs have to be in every game. And if they're not, people are like on NeoGAF going, "What the fuck?
Dude, have you been
the boob
seeing
performance is terrible."
All these crazy posts about like Stellar Blade, and it's like, this is the woman in Stellar Blade. Everyone else is woke. You guys are woke because you don't have a slutty girl as a protagonist. It's like, really, dude? Like, you're just you just want to jack off the pixels in your game, dude. Come on, man.
And I don't, but I admit that. For example, when I was making my Dragon's Dogma character, I made 2. I made a man, and I made him as I always make a huge, dumb-looking main character. That's always what I like. You can say that's a reflection of me. I don't know. But Unga Bunga, yeah. So I get this guy who's like, every cutscene is him going and staring at the screen. It's so great. But then I made a pretty girl for the pawn. Not that they're romantically... I didn't think of them romantically involved, but I did want that in the game. I wanted both. And
I made a mage, like a pretty blonde mage.
Yeah. Well, I will say one thing. When I was reviewing it, one of the things I noticed is there was a so you guys were talking about you were worried there was going to be or that in the past game there's way too many females in bathing suits. I think somebody, maybe even Silver, had said he noticed that.
In the Rift.
Here's the problem with this game, and I fucking should have said this back in the podcast. I should have guessed this was going to happen. I could have thought about it. I think an intelligent person would have. That's probably why I missed it. It's all beast people.
Oh, hell
and it
yeah,
sucks
dude. We're going to get furries? We're going to get furries now?
No, it's not just furries. It's that they're just generically blurted out. And there's a lot that look terrible. And when I was going in, I would have to actually do the filter to just get a normal person because the fur filter is amazing. They did a really good job. I mean, dude, I made a guy who looks like Simba for the Lion King. It looks awesome. Big fucking mane and all that stuff. But I noticed that the pawns are a lot of that, and I'm wondering if there'll be a dearth of options, at least for a little while.
I'm expecting with all the things we've been seeing from the community to just get like random actors and random characters from different games as pawns. People are making all these crazy creations.
The stuff that's being made.
See, like, I can see Kratos, and
I spent almost 4 hours trying to make anything that looked cool. And when I say he looked like Simba, I want to make sure everybody understands he simply looked like a cat dude. He didn't look good.
Yeah.
And I
at least
saw
with the
people,
same colors, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that. Nope, he wasn't even the same color. I went by memory, and now I'm realizing he's not in Simba. My version is like a very dark tawny, and he's obviously the exact opposite. But it's like people can make stuff that makes me a little angry because I'm looking at it, and I'll look at a picture like I've always had a huge man crush, despite her gaping demonic maw of Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway has always been very attractive to me, like Catwoman in the Batman movies or whatever. Yeah. And I've always really liked, or Emma, what's her name from Shameless? Emma Rossum. Yeah.
I mean,
probably because I followed her when she was a singer, but I liked her. I like that look. Dude, I try to make them, and it looks like me as Emma Rossum. It looks wrong. I can't. I'm not. Dude, I don't know what it is. I would be terrible as a police sketch artist, though.
Dude, I legitimately think these people that are great at using character creation and do stuff like that are artists. Like that's art. That's talent.
Oh no, they absolutely are. Absolutely.
Oh, it's like trying to work CSS. It's fucking crazy with just numerical values, and it's nuts.
And somehow they know that, so I'll put a chin on somebody because that chin looks like they're the chin that I see on a movie star, but I don't realize that there's 8,000 other facial features that go into the chin that make that chin.
I go through the character creator, I'm like, I didn't know there's so many features to a face. Like now I'm like looking at myself in the mirror, it's like, wait, what, you know what I mean? Like you start noticing things where it's like, wait, I have, like, there's so much more to a face when you just think it's like eyes, cheekbones, nose, and mouth, right? No. There's like
especially
so many different variations.
You get into the eyebrows, and even just the separation of eyebrows can make somebody look questionable in a DNA pool standpoint, or look completely normal, or then look completely monstrous. Like,
right.
And it's a degree that's so small that you can do it, and then you'll mess with the eyes a little bit, and pretty soon you look at it and you're like, whoa, this guy went from okay to just he's fucked looking. What happened? You find out it's two dots. But just like a sculptor and a painter are completely different, though they both are technically additive, there's something that's amazing about somebody who can jump in a character. It's like a Photoshop person. I've heard people say a lot of people aren't Photoshop artists. In fact, when Photoshop became a thing, I was live, and I remember people bitching, saying that's not real art. You can't draw on a computer. And of course now most artists use digital tablets. But it's crazy to see somebody do that, and that's legitimate art. If somebody were to say it's, I don't mean it's as detailed, but it's an art form. It's creating something that looks a certain way, and they're fucking doing a good job. They're doing a fantastic job. It's just
dude.
William Dafoe, Goblins.
Dude, William Dafoe was insane,
Pennywise
dude.
from
it's weird because of how realistic the characters look. Like how realistic the characters look and the character creator. Mind you, you can make a very unrealistic looking character. And I don't mean like you can make a goblin looking thing. You can make a realistic goblin. You can make like a fucked up looking character on like a level that's like a meta level where it's like, oh, this doesn't look right. You could do that for sure. But because of just how realistic these faces are, and just looking through them and changing some values like the eyebrows, like 1 or 2 degrees, and you change the whole emotion of the character. Like you see, like this guy has seen some shit in his life. He's like visibly angry. You know what I mean?
Or visibly in shock, like shell shock. If you have big eyes, you're sad. Like, whoa, this guy's seen some shit. Like, don't walk up and talk to this guy in a grocery store, like where they're just sitting there. I need string cheese, and you're like, dude, seriously, you need more than that. Yeah, no, it's awesome, man. Rise of the Ronin has a cool character creator. I can talk about it because we can talk about that 120 minutes.
Did have one too.
I got this amazing look on my character, and I don't know how it happened because I was not able to replicate it. I went back and hit reset on accident, but I made what I consider to be a very pretty woman in that as the female samurai. And then I did something weird where she had one eyebrow slightly, like it was like asynchronous eyebrows, which you can do, and she had this like almost like a I can't even do it. The one eyebrow thing that some girls can do. Guys can do it too, I'm sure. But they, the one eyebrow king. Yeah. But don't do it to me. in a sexy way. Don't do it.
Oh, okay, I can't do
Don't
that.
do
I
that
have
to me
like,
on this podcast. But
I'm like
yeah,
the Rock type of way. Yeah.
dude, it was awesome. I was like, oh, this is great, and I hit reset and reset
no.
it, which sucks balls because I tried to recreate it, and instead I made Terror on Wheels. Man, she did not turn out good.
Has there ever been a character creator that let you individually turn off and on like every single tooth on display?
No. Mm-mm. No, that's
the first time
you mean
I saw
Dragon's Dogma letting you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've not seen it. And I messed around with Simba trying to make fangs because I wanted to. But when you pull out the teeth, you're really pulling them out. You're not like accentuating anything, or during a smile, you'll see them. You're literally pulling them out, which can look, it looks rough. But yeah, I made some beat up bums. I can't make anything good though. Which it depresses me a little bit because in cutscenes, well, no, my guy I like, and the girl I like, but they're not. If I'm being honest, I would have liked to have made him dumber looking and her prettier. And in Dragon's Dogma, and I don't have the skill for that. I should just hire somebody,
legit. And people post
like a livery on a 360 version of Forza. You hire somebody to make it for you. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, like also people post their sliders and stuff that you can copy. Yeah,
it's crazy, man. $2 super chat SBZ. Will you review Alone in the Dark? No, I will not. Sorry about that, but that did not come in time. I don't think it came in at all.
Isn't it out?
It is. I think PR had contacted me a couple days late and had said that they made a mistake. Yeah, they did. They missed me because there were multiple people handling codes, I believe. But by that time, I already had the 2 or 3 games I'm covering now. Base 23 BKNY. Base 23 Bikanai. $20 super chat. In my opinion, a PS5 Pro is needed. 95% of the games have performance modes, but at low resolutions like 720p upscaled to 1440 using FSR2, which looks like Vaseline. That is legitimate, by the way. Nothing wrong with that idea. That's and we'll talk about it in a second. That is one of the reasons is when they go super low and they try to use FSR DLSS, and you can only polish up a turd so much. Like at some point, you start to see, alien. There's not enough detail.
Right, like even when I turned my sharpness up for Final Fantasy to take off the blur, that's when like the textures show, and you don't want the textures.
Exactly. Which I don't think it's all a plan on their part. I think the blurriness was certainly not a full plan, but I think some of it was. Some of that blurriness is a plan to hide some of the. But dude, those textures you can see. You can turn the blurriness to 100%. No, that fucking dial when you start that game and you go up to that first pipe in Rebirth, and the pipe and wall and everything are straight up 12 pixels.
Yeah. Dude, the doors are still the same, dude.
My God. They're hilarious. They're hilarious. By the way, anybody who's like, oh my God, they hate the game. I love the game. I love the game. I love the game too. Those are some fuck textures, man. People love me. I've got some problems. Like that's the way you got to treat your games. $5 CA super chat from Dwal Segal. Dwal Segal. That sounds sort of cool. Dwal Segal. Can you comment on what the Dragon's Dogma 2 in-game is like? More like base DD2 or DLC? Keep up the podcasts. No, I cannot. It is distinctly noted 100% that is off limits. There's a couple things off limits. And so if I don't answer some questions, it's because if I say an answer, it's the answer. Like if you say I can't answer, you just answered the question, even though you're not able to talk about it. So I'm a little tentative.
Yeah.
Well, here we can say there is stuff, but that's all. It's completely. That was a big deal.
Please don't. I know some people know. Please don't write it in chat. I don't.
I'll
maybe
just ban them if they read it in chat.
Cool.
Are you talking about?
Cool.
Like I don't like that kind of stuff.
Just
The
like
spoilers
kind of stuff or anything. Yeah.
But
I can. Oh no, we're not at that topic, right?
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're not. We're not. If we're gonna
start asking questions. Yeah.
B1 G Duck said, "Watch the review and listening to the podcast several thousand feet up. Bless Wi-Fi on planes." Ethan says, "A little behind, but Anne Hathaway is sexy. She is." Her and Emma Rossum are like my weakness for something. I think I have a thing with like primped up, sophisticated hair. Does that make sense? Like when it's like done up or something. I don't know, man.
Sandra
There's something.
Bullock or something, or no?
No, Sandra Bullock's very pretty, and it can be anybody it is an any girl, but there's something about like hair that's really done up that like
Yeah, I
that
like
gets
the
me.
when it starts straight and then it starts like curling down the.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's like
I know
that's
that.
the best.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some I would like to know. I'm assuming it's because I was raised around like a lot of secretaries and stuff, and they were always done up. And so in my brain, that's what I patterned onto versus something else. Thank you very much, Kenneth, for becoming a member. I did update the member count list. Anybody who becomes a member gets the Discord access where we're going to be streaming games, talking about games. It's pretty good. It's pretty good in there. And we, for the most part, don't spoil things. I think once or twice.
We don't at all. We're very safe.
Yeah,
we're like one of the safest.
we might be too safe because there's been a couple times where somebody's been like, so with Dragon's Dogma 2, and they're like, there's a sequel? That's a spoiler. You're wrong. Come on.
I've checked like other podcasts, and compared to them, we are super safe.
Yeah.
I've seen like, holy shit, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely seen those. Even in this review, it was very difficult to know like what you could say that wasn't a spoiler. And then I just decided, we know you fight monsters and humans, true. So I'm just going to put monsters and humans you fight in there and be like, if you have a problem with that, then I can't say. I didn't put later ones in, but it's like, come on.
Yeah.
At some point, why are you watching a review?
How long did you play it to beat it?
To beat it was 99 hours exactly. Oh, well, okay, I say exactly, but I was testing.
Yeah,
because I had the Xbox version.
But usually
and that
I
version.
have like similar times as you. Like I spend my time.
You're going to be longer than that because at the end I had to like go. I had to go.
Okay. Cool.
Because I will just walk around in Dragon's. Like, we'll talk about it in a second. There's a lot in that game that I think doesn't fit. Let's say a Witcher. It fits more of a Witcher stereotype actually than it does a like Final Fantasy. It fits more of a Elden Ring light kind of discovery matrix. Well, yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. Okay. Shazbot says Dragon's Dogma 2 on the ROG Ally or Steam Deck. ROG Ally runs it. I know it runs on the Legion because I played it about 9 hours on the Legion. And the reason why I don't mention the Legion in reviews, and I may in the future, is because it just got cut because we had a very particular amount of time we could talk about the game and show footage. It was very locked off. They were like, this is how long. And by the time I got to where I wanted to get to, just didn't have the time. The Legion isn't necessarily a huge device. Nor, I mean, I know the Steam Deck is, but the Steam Deck, I covered that with my performance discussion. You can tell where performance is going to go. Like, when you start talking about a 4090 having some issues, you're just like, all right, probably best that I don't assume this is just going to run.
It's probably also CPU limited mostly, right?
It's very CPU.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a
My
second.
i9 is going to cry probably. Maybe. Is it very temp side?
i9's will... Well, it depends on what gen it is, because that is another... Yeah, we'll talk about it. That is for sure another thing, is like what gen and how many gigs they have on the cache and all that. And that's what Face 23 Beacony, I don't know, says. $2 super chat. I heard DD2 has CPU limitations on PC and console. That is absolutely true. So...
Did you say it's justified? Like justified limitations?
No, not justified that I'm mad, but justified that there is no justification. You go into a town and there's like, it's certainly more than Skyrim, but it's not Starfield. Whether you like Starfield or not, there's a boatload of people in Starfield. And yes, some of these characters are doing stuff, but many are just sitting there behind a stall. And they're like, Masterworks all.
What if it's like the mere fact that like, can't they take up arms or
so
have,
that's what I was that is the one thing that I noticed where it got bad. So it's bad normally in the cities. It's a good cut of FPS. It's a nice solid cut to your FPS when you go into city. So bad that if you turn and look outside and start to walk towards the entrance outside, it's like it's weird.
I'm
it's
used to it with Escape from Tarkov.
It's fucking phenomenal in this weird way. It's like all of a sudden you go from like and it fucking is pegged. And I had great FPS
man, I'm gonna
outside.
Be like a traveling hermit. Okay, I'm gonna vow not to step foot in a city or something.
Yeah, that's so. And then you get these battles in the city. Sometime if a monster comes into the city, humans can attack them. It didn't get much worse. It's not a it's not a GPU fill rate issue, meaning a 4090 isn't going to magically give you more FPS when that big battle happens. It's not that many people.
Yeah.
It's like 8 or 9 villagers, the monster. You can have that in a monster attack out in the woods with 2 bandits attacking at the same time, because these monsters are always traveling. So you'll be out there fighting a troll, suddenly wolves come in, suddenly harpy comes down, and then if you're unlucky, an eagle or a griffin comes down. So you can have big battles. It's just
That's
the
very
city
cool.
sucks balls, man. And
Yeah.
it sucks because it's one city. There's other places in the game that are pretty populated, and they do not. It's one particular city, and it's I don't know, man. It just, yeah, it sucks.
And I saw for console, even though I don't think console had like dips like that, but it had pop in with the NPCs in cities. From what
Yeah,
I've seen.
I will say the Xbox is actually Xbox and Series S, probably because of their small CPU advantage or how they're doing something, and they do VRR without requiring 48
40.
hertz,
Yeah.
which sucks
48.
balls on the PS5. Yeah, so
Right.
those are your console right now of choice. They're actually they're much less of a drop. They also don't get to the highs, but they're much less of a drop in town. There is some pop in. Is it playable? Yeah. And will it kill you? No. Like, I did get a little ill a couple times because I was talking to somebody who's working on some stuff for the game, and they were talking about their experiences, and I was like, yeah, but if you're in a hallway and you go through a door that stays half ajar because the game wants to animate doors correctly, and then now half of your view is occluded by a door, and then you twist at 35 frames per second, it made me like sit back a
It
couple
dropped
times.
that low? Damn.
Oh yeah. It definitely. I mean, I definitely saw it in the like 31 to 40 FPS in the city.
Jesus.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter
crazy.
what. There's people with like AMDs. You know, PC Gamer did a good breakdown. PC Gamers was almost identical in all of their, because I used 3 CPUs this time. They're almost identical. From the 1390 down to the old one is the 8800, and it runs it. See, that's the other thing. You can have an old CPU and run this. It's weird. It's like you can have an old CPU and actually
That
run
definitely
this.
sounds like an optimization issue.
It is. And so as long as you're okay with around 30 in the cities, then the rest of the time, even an old CPU
gonna feel
will probably be
weird.
fine. Yeah, it
On a
does feel weird.
4090, 30 FPS is going to feel weird, man.
It does, but I'm so accustomed to that because it's rare that people always have a PC and a GPU and memory that's leveled when they buy. You know what I mean? They'll buy it, they'll upgrade their memory later. Suddenly they have a bump there. Then they upgrade their CPU, but their GPU's bad. It happens. I like to test. That's one of the reasons why I love to test the 4090 on 3 systems, including the balls end, the low, to sort of see, like, does the GPU give you anything for this, or can you actually get away? So mid-range stuff is going to get at 30. Maybe you lock it at 30. Maybe you have a VRR, monitor. But is it worth it still? Fuck yeah. The sense of discovery in that game never fucking stops, man. That's trumps.
Awesome.
It doesn't trump Elden Ring because it's not like Elden Ring. It's its own thing. But the sense of discovery in Dragon's Dogma probably.
Is it in
never
terms of
stopped.
like
It
random
never
things
stopped.
happening to you, or in terms of like what they placed in the game world, or both, like
What they
combination
placed,
of travel
how they
and...
played it, what you can do. The fact that in Elden Ring, I'm only using Elden Ring because people brought it up as an example, so I want to point this out. But like Elden Ring and the Dark Souls games, when you face off against a single guy, you can still die if you don't pay attention. If you don't do the stuff that those games want. What happens in Dragon's Dogma is you are more powerful. And you are like this, so that sense of difficulty, you can sort of decide how far you want to go into it. And then switch in vocations is pretty sweet. The vocations are slightly different. They're honed down so that when you get one, you get one. Like when I was a fighter, I felt like a fighter. And I was like, okay, this fucking shield, and I wasn't using the shield correctly for a while because admittedly, I was playing it like I forgot, and I was playing it, just blah, 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 blah. And then once I got the shield, I was like, oh, I'm going to upgrade to the warrior. And when I did, holy Christ, it's like nothing. It's nothing like the fighter. It's so weird
completely
to switch.
different it's like Monster Hunter, where it's like completely different play styles.
It is, but you can explore the play style quicker than Monster Hunter. See, this is what I keep trying to tell people is Dragon's Dogma lets you encounter all these small creatures that are doing all their stuff so you can test out the little changes you make so much easier than a Elden Ring or a Monster Hunter. It's not all about gathering. So you can just go out and explore and be like, okay, here's some goblins. I'm a warrior now. What's that mean? But I got to tell you, the warrior is like untouchable. It's weird. When you get to the warrior, he has buffs to stagger, buffs to stun, and the fighter has some, but holy shit. Like the first time a fucking ogre like smashed his hammer down, and as the warrior, I'm just like, yeah, so what, dude? I'm still swinging my sword. And you're like, and it takes 45 minutes. I mean, it takes forever. That guy is slowest attacker in the world.
Dude, yeah, I want to charge up those fucking attacks and just wait for the right moment, you know? Like,
oh, yeah, and you can charge. Yeah, that's the other thing. Is so you can do the quick and just spin, or you can do the charge up. And when you do charge up, it will stagger. See, that's the thing about the fighter. Everybody's skills, too. They can do different stuff. The fighter has this move that you leap up in the air and you swing, and it's normally for
like
air.
That GIF.
Yeah, and it's normally for air enemies, but if you use it on the taller enemies, you can hit them in the face, which stuns them.
Nice.
So as a fighter, I was using the air attack, just going like, and hitting them and being like, oh, no climbing. Or I can climb when I want, but now I can hit him in the face. And I was staggering him with that spin, and I was like, damn. That's awesome, sweet. Man. It just, it works really well.
One thing we were talking when we were like watching all these trailers, there was this thing with like interaction of environments and how like you can break like a rock to flood something or whatever. And you kind of speculated that what if maybe those are just like super far and few in between and very, very scripted, or, you know, there's more to it. Like there's a lot of that. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's about,
how did you feel?
It's about middle ground. There's certainly more rocks. They're everywhere. They're everywhere to the point to where, and if you get a pawn, the pawns are way more advanced than they were. So the pawn will tell you straight up what he does. The pawn will be like, when you hire him, he'll be like, you know what? I like to go off on my own. Sometimes I won't respond to what you say, and there's a good chance I'm going to crack shit and steal it. And then the other guy will be like, I like to mix things up in the inventory. And then somebody else is like, I like to push stuff. And if you get them and you're pushing rocks, those dudes will be pushing rocks, and you'll see some poor traveler coming up a hill. And there's like all your pawns are just pouring rocks onto some dude who's a merchant. You're like, oh shit, that was the wrong, because you're just testing things out.
Did you get any characters? Did you kill any NPCs by accident or get any of them killed?
Yeah, I had, and they have fights on their own. I came into the slums in the city, and these guys were brawling, and I thought it was a mess. I thought I hit somebody or whatever. And then I looked back, I reloaded because the save games are weird. So I reloaded, which either goes to the save game you've saved or goes back to the inn, which can be hours, which I do tell people, spend the money to save at an inn or a camp, because if you don't, there's going to be a time where you die and it saves at the wrong time, like where you enter into a bad spot and you're getting your butt kicked. But yeah, there was a bunch. There was good interactivity with everybody, and they do a lot of NPC versus NPC stuff, a ton. Like they were just constantly running around. There were people fighting sometimes, but there was a lot of times where you come around a corner, and just like the original Oblivion, I remember coming out of the prison, right? That's Oblivion, right? Yeah, coming out of the prison, going over a hill, and for whatever reason, two guards were fighting. And I was like, what the shit? Like, I don't, and it sort of makes your brain go, oh, what if he was banging the other dude's, chick, or what have you. That happens a lot in this game. You'll come into like the slums and two people are just brawling it out. One guy's drunk and you can't figure out, like,
did you romance anyone and get the other person jealous or some shit?
You can. I was not able to, or wasn't able to track it. That's the other thing, is the game tracks NPCs and stuff, which is great, but it doesn't track in the same way as like a Legion, Watch Dogs Legion, where it tracks their entire schedules and stuff. So it's a little,
and it's not like
it's a little non-transparent.
In my head, when I compare this game to something like Skyrim, and I know like the first one was super compared to Skyrim, but like, just hear me out. I like this, the one comparison, and I don't think even Elden Ring, I don't think a game has made me feel that way since Skyrim, or since any Bethesda game really, where you go into that world, and it's not like, hey, I know what I need to do to like 100% everything, where it's like you go into that world and you just like, you discover new things every time, every replay, or you just kind of live in that world. And since there's no like quest markers everywhere on every NPC that has a quest, you just kind of like, stumble upon stuff, that you didn't think was in the game. So it's kind of, maybe like the content in Skyrim isn't as much as the content in like Elden Ring or something, but you can but stuff that isn't tracked, like there's a lot of stuff that isn't really tracked precisely, so you just don't know, you know what I mean? Unless you like obviously Google it or whatever. So did you feel that way with this game, where it's just like you're kind of just in that world and there's like NPCs that might sometimes, you know, want you to do stuff for them, or is it very like completionist oriented?
I don't see how a completionist without a document from the developer would be able to even come close to completing it in that sense. It also might be dynamic, because there were some missions where I was like, this doesn't require any scripting from anybody. It's just a guy saying, can you take me here? Which could be easily, dynamically scripted. There was a shit ton
Like
of
a
quests
Radiant.
that timed out on me, though. Because I am a quest grabber.
Yeah.
And it warns you right ahead. It's like, hey, listen. And it gave you a good amount of time out, and it gives you a warning. It gives you like this timeout warning.
Oh, it
and
outright tells you.
Well, it doesn't tell you outright what the time is. It tells you outright that it doesn't even tell you outright that it's timed. It's just that if you read the script, you know it's timed. Like a person being abducted and possibly trapped by monsters is probably not going to be eating food with them for a month, right?
Right.
At some point, something bad's going to happen. And so I sat on one on purpose to see what would happen. And everything was fine. Everything was fine. I kept sleeping. I kept doing this. And then all of a sudden, there was a flashing hand. And I was like, oh, what is that? It is that war. It is telling me that, like, you know, you've spent way too many days fucking off pushing rocks around and not saving this kid. And I did. I let him die. Whatever.
And how would you, what percentage would you say that, like, give or take, quests that tell you what you need to do or where to go clearly on the map versus quests that don't? Or is it just like a mix? Or you can't,
that I
or
wouldn't be able to tell. There's certainly quests that say go to this city. But if you haven't seen the city, it'll just be like a big gray area on the map and then say it's over there.
It doesn't tell you like exactly where to go. And
some it will. Some there'll be a thing if you make the quest a priority. Some it'll be like, boom, here's your map. Especially if you've unlocked it, it'll pop those. But there's a great deal that are like, here's a yellow massive area where this might be like, and then there's many where there's, whoops, my dog's barking. There's many where there's nothing. They'll be like, this guy's missing, and then you have to talk to a bunch of people, and they'll give you a little data, and they'll be like, it's near the flower bed, and you're like, shit, I passed 3 flower beds, and you talk to more people, and sometimes you just explore, and you can find it that way. Other times you keep talking, and maybe you'll be lucky and find somebody who tells you exactly what it is. So it's a mix. It's like, and the one thing about the pawns is there's a check mark called quest giver or quest helper. It's a check mark when you buy a pawn, which indicates that pawn has some quests above yours that they can help you with. And the best thing is they'll like be like, admittedly, it gets a little bothersome after 18 hours, but at first they're like, hey, they don't scream sometimes, they'll just wave their arms. And I got one bug where the guy, no matter where I was just waving his arms. And I was like, that's a bug.
Nice. That's a feature.
Yeah, they'll lead you to a place and they'll say stuff. They'll be like, I remember. I think it's here. And the cool thing is they don't say it's right here until you get there. They'll be like, I think it's over here. And then you follow them and they'll leap down stuff. And it also, from what I can tell, it depends on how they got there. Because I tried to reload a quest and then go the opposite route on purpose. So let's say there's a football field in the center. I went east one way and west the other. And I'm pretty sure that NPC had only gone one way, because the other way, he didn't really say much other than the same things, like, we don't know. And then once I got there, he's like, oh, I recognize this place. Where the other time, he was like, it's this way, it's this way, it's this way. So they're even tracking, like, how they got there and stuff.
Midway. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, midpoints. Yeah.
Super interesting.
And those guys rock.
Actually, I don't know how you would test for that, but let's say you have, like, a fighter in your team, and you are a fighter, do they learn from you, or at least your main pawn, or you possibly cannot track that, right?
Do they learn? So I didn't have overlapping pawns. I didn't have an overlapping pawn with me where there was a couple fighters I got, but I was a fighter. So I was like, I'm not going to get a fighter.
Right.
They definitely level up. They bring their stuff back, but I don't know if they would learn. Wait a minute. No, I think there is a skill synergy behavior of some kind. I think there is something where they learn fighter faster if they're a fighter and you're a fighter and you pull off moves. But it might have been they have a pretty nice diary or what. tutorial skills journal. I probably should have looked at that. I thought I did, and I don't remember seeing it, but I do remember getting a fighter, and he leveled up pretty quick.
Okay.
So that might be a soft thing. And it would make sense if maybe you're higher level than them and you pull off a move. Yeah. Maybe they just get a little bit more experience. I don't know. But.
Did you notice how did you like the AI overall, like while you're fighting?
The AI while fighting? While fighting, it's good.
Like the pawns.
It's good. It's better than it was, and there's a lot of like movie moments, a lot of leaping, a lot of healing, and you can just tell them, even a guy who says, I don't like to heal others, if you say help me and he has something, he will still come heal you. It's that they won't it's that they won't focus on you and consistently watch to see if you're getting hit. But what I do like is when you do get hit, they constantly talk. They constantly are like, the Arisen's doused in fire. You got to, put some, if you have water, put it on him. And that was cool because they all did it. What were you saying?
No, I was just saying, that person's inclination was probably not kind-hearted if they're not focused on like healing or something.
Correct, because they do have different inclinations. They do state right when you buy them. And there's ability to adjust it, just like there was in the first one. But they'll say, I watch for others. They'll say, I ignore others.
Oh, did you find a Book of Metamorphosis anywhere?
I don't know what we're allowed to talk about in that aspect. Okay, so
that's just something from the first game. I was just wondering if, Okay.
There are definitely ways to adjust things, but I think that's as far as I want to go on that because
cool.
Anybody listening, he asked, so I said nothing. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm not quite sure. What else? There's definitely the big monsters can take off and fly around with you. And here's the thing. The 30 FPS, it does suck. But weirdly enough, and it could be the way I played, man, did I almost barely notice it. I knew it and noted it, but the game isn't about the city. All of them. The game's not about the city. And yes, there's some quests in the city, certainly some big ones, but it's not about the city. So you're going to see a lot of people focus on the city performance, which is valid because it is weird. But man, when you're out and about exploring, like it's not near as noticeable, and it is just constant discovery. It is ridiculous. It's hard to describe without spoiling stuff, but it's like no matter if it was a vocation, a spell, a perk that you get, or a new like random port stone that you find that has a special pawn, because they'll have like hidden pawns everywhere that are super high level. And they'll be casting spells that like are really high level sometimes, depending on when you get them. It just didn't. I mean, it's there, it's noticeable, it sucks, but man, oh man.
The game's quality trumped it. It's like how Bloodborne trumped 16 FPS. Yeah. That's
it reminds
awesome.
me of Zelda. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom had some issues in FPS too.
That's true.
And this is very close to Zelda in the way that and it's less FPS drops than Zelda was. As in Zelda was low all the time, I guess, because it's a Switch. This is not low all the time. This is actually high, but noticeably low in places will be low. I didn't get a big drop in a place I didn't expect. I got it dropped right where I expected. I was like, this is exactly, cities like the old Bethesda games where you're like, no, here we go. We're going into this town, Balmora, and it's going to drop to 5 FPS. But
did you,
oh, go ahead and ask.
Yeah. Just how'd you find the enemy variety? And that could be like a one word, like I liked it, I didn't like it.
No, there's no, I just like Dragon's Dogma's enemies more than most other games because it's a mix of humans and it's a mix of
fantasy, Roman.
Yeah, and it's more Greek. And there's the fucking mythical creatures we're accustomed to, like a Hydra or something like that I sort of dig, not as much as I like a European style dragon or something, but they're in there and there's a big mix, and they require completely different styles of fighting, which is it's not unknown for a game, but you know how Skyrim. I'm just using Skyrim as an example, but a lot of action games, as long as you have Fireball, you're going to kill somebody. And you don't. It doesn't require anything. This game will pick up a pawn, and a Griffin will pick up a pawn and like fly up in the air and drop him. And it's almost 100% chance that not only is that going to be dead, but what if he falls off a hill? and goes somewhere you can't get to without hurting yourself. And the fighter has a move that allows him to leap up into the air, put his shield down, and hit the ground harder than he hits, which, yes, it doesn't make any logical sense, but it's like Dragon Ball. So I would leap out of nowhere and just be like, "Rah!" and slam the thing down so I could heal a guy. And then the Griffin, would come back around and attack down there, which then some NPCs, they didn't really kill themselves, I noticed. They would get knocked down, but I didn't notice a lot falling or anything like that.
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah, I'm
excited for just like chaos. Like for example, we're going to be streaming on Friday on the Discord. You guys can join the Discord. Obviously, we always but like I feel like this game, I'm just very excited for that sense of community where it's like, oh my God, look what happened in my game. Oh my God, look what happened in my game. And just pure fun. Yeah, just pure fun. Yeah.
I'll add to that in a second too, because there's something else. Soulskeeper, $12 Super Chat. Gents, join in late. Do you suggest to play Dragon's Dogma 1 before 2, and do wolves still hunt in packs? Number 1, no. You should. There's no reason to play 1 anymore. It's a great game. And number 2, they do hunt in packs, but that's the best thing about the pawns. They just don't repeat themselves in the same way. They're a little bit more opaque, and I don't know if that's going to be as interesting to people because there's no tropes. There's less tropes in this, like whatever the one Silver was copying in, or we've talked, wolves are afraid of fire or whatever. It's not like that, man. There's much more nuanced discussion between, and there's
maybe that's
discussion
why they
when
had like little voice selection for the pawns.
Yeah, it probably is, because there's a lot of stuff that they say about the creatures, and they say about their statuses or about your statuses that requires different levels for, let's say, 4 or 5 different things just for your status, let alone, when you're on fire, when you're poisoned, when you're immersed, when you're covered in water. There's drenched, right? Yeah, it's called drenched, I think. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but there isn't that wolves are afraid of fire moment, which I think this might get Uncanny Valley in a way for some people, because the pawns are, remember how dumb they were? They were really smooth-brained in the first one, right? And this one, they're definitely,
because you saw the if statements. Like playing the first one, you were like,
you absolutely do. If then, if this, then this. This is very fuzzy. If then, it's almost like if this, then dynamic, random choice 10, and it chooses out of 10 choices. And so you're like, whoa, he didn't say that last time. He didn't say he didn't say this last time. So, but the combat's awesome. Sound effects are good. Music's a little. Remember in the first one they had it's got that. Well, it had the title, The Wind Is Pushing Me, but
which they changed, right?
They changed, but you get into the music, it's got the classic, it's got a little bit of like the the woman singing. This is still that way, which I like it. It's just not as listenable to me. It's a little
I just like a lot
eclectic,
of the classic, just it's like very classic fantasy. It's like
this is very classic fantasy. Yeah, it's very it's nice. Got like a top. Not only does it have a lot of top to it, where a little bit not theatrical, I guess heroic, but it does have a lot of times where it's just sitting in the back and it's like, it's just playing stuff. I guess
the combat music kind of sounds like Witcher. There's a certain combat track that has that same cello, like high pitched cello that goes like,
does it?
It whines a little bit. Yeah,
I didn't pick up on that. I guess I just didn't pick up that. It's just not my style as much. I mean, it's not bad. It's just for whatever reason, maybe I've come off these other games. That's actually a good. I don't know what it was about the music, but Dragon's Dogma 1 originally did the same thing, where I liked some of it, and The Wind Is Pushing Me is awesome, but then the actual music in it, maybe it's a little too norm, and I need it a little bit more. I don't know, but I didn't listen to it much of this because you're just playing.
I've been watching Shogun, and they introduced a lot of synthy shit. There's a lot of mush with the synths.
Playing around with it a little bit more.
Yeah, or what was that game that came out that just had a phenomenal mix of synth and symphony and shit? We talked about it. Fucking Dying Light 2. Oh my goodness.
Dying Light 2 soundtrack is wicked.
They're
weird.
Innovating.
Yeah.
They're innovating a lot. Yeah. So this one, it will be interesting because it'll just be classic old school.
It is very classic in that sense. It's it's just there. It reminds you of European fantasy movies or something. It doesn't. It's just exactly what it looks like, is what it sounds like. There's no real change there. By the way, it's not bad. It's just for whatever reason it didn't sit with me in the way the other games did. Vocations and stuff I can talk about generally. There are many. Then you have the advanced prestige kind of stuff. Pretty easy to switch. Actually, not hard at all to switch, which I sort of dug.
And you can still
Weapon
obviously
upgrades are
augment.
noticeable. You can augment. Yeah, you can enhance your weapons, which is this is why I love
Or no, I
number
meant
one.
like passives from like different vocations and
You
shit.
can, yeah,
like
you can
augments.
definitely do that. But sorry, what I thought you meant was the weapons. The one thing I love about this game is that first augment or the first enhance of the weapon is always just money. It's not about monster collecting, so you can always augment your first item with like
Oh, that's really good.
$41. You don't.
So you don't
need
like save your precious crafting material for
you
that
if
first
you
upgrade. Yeah.
for that first upgrade, yeah, and that means also you can experiment easier if you find something at a store. So because if you just upgraded twice on this guy, but this one goes a little bit higher, you could be like, all right, then I'm just going to buy this, carry it around. Of course, you have you have inventory, weight and stuff like that, which is a bitch. There's rings and stuff that you can use to adjust inventory weight, but yeah, that's
yeah. I'm going to be
You get
collecting
heavy quick.
everything that increases the inventory
yeah, dude.
limit.
That's what I did. It's like there's
Plus,
a perk,
I made a big
there's
guy,
rings.
so I think the big guy can carry more than the small guy.
Yeah, but like things like the camping equipment weigh poundage, and they're a save if you think about it. So I was splitting those. I had like 9, and within a short amount of time, the mage is like complaining about being heavy and stuff. He's like, "Should we put some stuff down, sir?" Blah blah blah. I'm just throwing shit onto these pawns because I wanted to be heavy. That was it. I didn't even want to be medium or light. I just wanted to get down to heavy because I was over encumbrance quite a number of times with those in particular. So
does it
yeah,
make
it was awesome.
carrying your pawns harder if you're heavier? So because I know when you carry your pawns, like in the first one, you get over encumbered. But does
You mean
it
when you
matter
pick
like
up
if you
a
were
pawn?
heavy at the start? Yeah, versus light at the start. So like you can
Do you
carry
mean
them.
pick up, like physically pick up your own pawn?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do that other than to joke around, and throw them off cliffs.
Oh, okay. Because I've seen because now it's like a couple seconds to revive them, right? So like I feel like that would be maybe useful. I don't know.
It is a couple seconds to revive them, and it's all that if you're playing on the console or the PC, it's fucking that context sensitive shit where it's all under B. And so it's tap B to do this, hold B to do this, tap B over here, but look at the guy to do this, and you can be in the middle of a battle going, I just want to grab, or like they'll drop certain things and maybe it's health or you think it might be and you want to grab it and you can't, or you want to go and get an herb because you're out in the middle of battle. If a guy dies, you can end up going there and trying to click on it. You can't click on it because the dude's over the top of it and it's the same button. And it feels to me like they could have easily, that's just a thing, right? Remember when Witcher 3 came out and it was like a button ran and picked up stuff or something,
and turn on the lantern, or like
you turn on the lantern 150 fucking
they
times.
Like prioritize it. Like even if you want to pick like a chest right in front of you, he'd be turning off the lantern. Good times, man.
Good times when they patched it. No, that sucked day one, man, because I did that a lot where I'd go into a room and I'd just be turning on and off, or cupping the lights or lighting them again. I'd be like, dude, what are you doing? But yeah, it's just context.
Sorry. Really, really
Yeah,
quickly.
no worries. It's just context sensitive. While you're doing that, I'm going to answer some of these questions in here. What type of FPS am I going to get with I think somebody said a 3060 or 3070. It actually matters on your CPU much more than the 3060 or 3070. As most people know, CPU is actually more directly connected to FPS, where resolution is more directly connected to graphics card. And this is certainly a game where that is noticeable. And it's sort of weird in a way. I don't want it to happen, but it's good in a way because I think a lot of people will come away from this game understanding tech a little bit more, because you'll see a lot of people say, I got a 4090. I can't run this game at 60 FPS. And you'll be like, that's weird. What are your specs? And then what are your settings? And they'll tell you, and you'll be like, dude, you've got a CPU from like 15 years ago. Of course you can't. So those are all actually sort of they're sort of connected in a way.
I'm worried about like because there's so much more focus right now in games having like this like blockbuster level movie stories and shit.
Right.
And now people dude, because now story is way more in the forefront. Like people played Skyrim back in the day, like story was basically non-existent. Come on, let's be real. And everyone, I wonder how now it'll be interesting to see because people are way more story oriented now. In general, I feel like
this one's certainly not gonna,
or like PlayStation players.
It's not gonna like knock your socks off.
That's like
for
the last
sure.
thing on my mind, man. Like story is like I'm not even thinking about story for that game.
I mean, it's really not even the story in a way sort of tells you the story. It's not that they say the story doesn't make sense in the story, but they sort of, it doesn't matter as much as your deeds and what you do. And what's funny is if you played number 1, you're the Arisen, you're out there getting claim and fame. That's pretty much number 2. And to do that, you're fighting off creatures and doing missions. So they pretty much tell you right from the start that it's not going to be. There is some missions in the city that have to do with that, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There are some of those, but for the most part, it's all about.
Don't expect to cry. It's not Nier Automata or something.
No, there is some cool stuff. Nope. Sorry. I remember that. Now I remember that. I remember distinctly it saying, don't say anything about that. Which is cool, by the way. If anybody thinks that's protectionism from the company, it's actually not. Some of this stuff, it's not a mechanic that I was going to talk about anyway. It's just some of the stuff is better experienced by the player than even hinted at by the reviewer. And a lot of this stuff I don't care about, and I'll tell you guys, and you just have to deal with it because, hey, there's monsters in this. That's not a spoiler, but this one in particular is a little weird. Jay Reaper, $5 super chat, best gaming podcast. What's up, Jay? Hope you're having a good week. What'd you say?
It's interesting because also, like, for example, Tears of the Kingdom and Elden Ring, they also have had a non-existent story, but like the most poignant, even emotional parts of that game, like actually legit hit me in the feel somewhat, is very gameplay driven, like doing something. For example, in TOTK, it was like jumping off something and going down and finding something which just hit, you know what I mean? And then Elden Ring, there was like the elevator and there's like a couple other moments. So yeah, I like those. Like,
dude, I want to play Dragon's Dogma right now. Fucking shut up. I'm not lying. I got another game to review, and I was just gonna say, there are moments in this game, man, where it's so fucking hard to describe because it has nothing to do with story or anything. It's just like experience, like sitting, hanging out with the pawns at lunch, and you make them dinner, and that's like FMV, which we've known about, but I thought that was pretty cool. It's like steak. A steak. It's like a steak on a slow, like somebody's pulling or the camera's sliding, and it looks good, by the way. Like you're looking at it going, dude, I'd mash that. And then they say one or two things, and then you get in a battle. And I remember one time, I wasn't even a special move. There was a guy, he was a little higher than me, so I ran up on the cliff, leaped off, and hit him in the head. There was nothing special overall about it. But one of the pawns was like, good hit, or something like that. And I was like, fuck yeah. There's something that goes on in Dragon's Dogma, man. It's high-fiving, but that's what I said at the end of the review. This is not a cheerleader who's fucking banging you after a football game. It's the coach who goes, and that's it.
Nice.
And there's something like a dad going, when you do a good job. That's all it is. The game does not celebrate shit. After a troll 30-minute battle, the troll's like, that's a hard foe, and that's it. And you're all, damn, we fought a lot to get that one little thing. And you'll do a good job. And laziest high five, by the way. They'll be like, it's like they're moving their body to get their arm to move. Yeah. Casual, and then there's another one that is very cool. It's almost like a handhold, not in a weird way. It's where they it's almost like, Predator, where Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers, grab each other's arms. But it's down like this, and they just go like, shh. And they just jerk.
Like they just do
it's like a baby. Yes, it's awesome because it's not overproduced. It's just like, dude, good job, and a nod and a point. You did good, and
it's
move
not like
on.
Acting.
Yeah,
it's just like
even when you give the guy an award for leaving, when you're like, okay, I need to replace this pawn, you give him like a rotten apple, and he's like, thank you very much. I will be. It's like That's why I said it is very much a story of a man and his dogs. It really probably speaks to me in that way because they are intelligent, but they're not super intelligent. And
that's interesting.
When you see something on a hill and the guy's like, I can get up there, and you say, go ahead, and they levitate up and get you some gold or whatever, you're like, good boy, good girl. Sick. It's fucking awesome. Like that to me is what Dark Souls and Elden Ring miss. They're solitary, but the sense of companionship isn't there, and the longer it goes, sometimes the more noticeable it is. This is still solitary. It's still dire. It's still dark. You can still die. It's still weird ghosts and creatures that can put you to sleep. But it's just got this, like, you got some puppies with you, and and they happen to have swords, and they're pretty cool. It's like one of my favorite parts of the game, man. I liked it number one. It's way better in this one. That's the other thing.
That's
There's
really
nothing not
awesome.
improved.
Wow.
It's one of the first times I've seen that that I can say in a game where there's nothing that they've kept that's not improved. You know, it's
you didn't
just
miss the Strider or the Mystic Knight or whatever, huh?
I did not. And that is one thing with the game is those changes are so big. It was very hard, even at 90 hours, it's very hard to test them all. There's very big changes. So like you get the warrior, the fighter, you get the wayfarer, you get the archer, thief,
Trickster,
all those. They are massively different and massively they're focused way more than the first game. I feel.
That probably makes sense to like separate the Strider into thief and archer if they like dove into the character.
They do. When you get that skill, man.
identity.
Sorry, I have to shift a lot, but this seat is killing me.
When
you get the when you get like a certain character and you put their skills on, they do distinctly mean something. Like that's the one thing. You have like the spots you put skills on. There was a lot of analysis paralysis that was going on there, where I was like, okay, I can do this, but is that going to be as important as this? And then with these pawns, it's going to be super important. Is it going to be less important if I get these other pawns? So there were times where when I switched out pawns, I would just make a quick jump over to a place and look at, like, do I need to switch out any skills? And you can do it at camps without a camp pack. So you can go to any fire that's burning.
In your camp? And a fire that's no way, dude.
Yeah,
You
without
have to
a
go back to
camp
the
pack.
city?
So you can't upgrade or anything, but you can switch out. So if you're
That's
like there's a
awesome.
guy that or there's an elemental thing that you want to add, like you've been using ice and you want to go to fire or something like that, you can definitely do it. But yeah, it works well, man. It's just awesome to see. It's awesome to be here and post all these big games. Other than Star Citizen, I feel like as I started the channel, it's always been looking forward to stuff, and this is like after Dragon's Dogma 2 has now come out. It's weird to be like
Post Dragon's Dogma 2
post Dragon's Dogma 2, post Cyberpunk, post Starfield, post Elden Ring. Elden Ring's another one that it was weird to see it announced. I remember not thinking Dragon's Dogma was going to be a thing. Dragon's Dogma 2.
I remember sometimes in podcasts we'd be like, yo, imagine, right?
Yep.
But then they announced it once where it was only a title and we're like, yeah, this will probably like release in like 5-6 years or something, right? And then it just kind of
it feels like it's just popped. Yeah, it's weird, man.
Crazy. Not like it didn't have a hype like Elder Scrolls 6 or something where they showed it a million years ago and built up all this hype and stuff. It kind of just happened. It's nuts. Maybe it's because it's more of like this is the game now. Like this is Dragon's Dogma 1, but today's like this is the game we wanted to do or something, rather than like this is a sequel to a crazy game, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they did mention that a lot of this stuff is just stuff they wanted to do. Like the Beast Run they wanted to add in the first game.
They didn't have like the tech for the fur or whatever. Yeah, they talked about that, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's obvious. I think if you look at it, it's like the fur and everything was worth it was worth putting in. It looks awesome. I still would like to see dogs, but whatever. They got cat people in there, and it looks cool. And you can do a lot of different looks. There's the occasional guy that looks like Khajiit has wares from Skyrim, that doesn't look great. But for the most part, there's some NPCs that you talk to, and you're like, huh. But what I actually noticed was most of the NPCs, even the there's no generic characters in the game. I mean, there is in the outside, but there's not in cities and stuff. It's not like there's no, they're all named, they're all whatever. Or if they're not, they look named, I guess, would be the easiest way to describe it. When you talk to everybody in the town, they look good. They look, they might look weird, but they look good.
Yeah.
They look like time was spent.
So this game definitely seems like an old school game. One thing that stood out to me that I loved seeing, which I don't think a lot of people talked about, was how the UI looks, like the styling of the UI. They didn't go for the new age minimal shit. It's very fantasy. Did you enjoy the UI overall?
Yeah, I do think that the pawns are the UI in a good amount of the time, because they know where locations are if you get the right ones, and they'll tell you where an enemy is, so you don't have to look at the minimap to see a red dot. There's all these things that are going on in that game that it never got credit for in number one. And I don't think it'll get credit number 2. It could be just that people will be bitching about FPS or something. But if you look at the way an interactive HUD should be, the pawns and the wind in Ghost of Tsushima are equal. I do actually believe that.
Yeah.
While I loved Ghost, I honestly think that the way this is delivered is just... There's so much going on with how pawns react in this game. I mean, like I said,
and it's not just
having
binary,
to look...
right?
No, it's not. You don't have to look at the minimap. You can hear a sound of a spell, or they'll say there's somebody casting a spell, or there's something about it. And the normal HUD's pretty good. I will say I had a lot of issues on the PC and console both with getting into one of the screens. I think it was the map screen. And then you do that thing where you try to get out, but it's going to somewhere else. Or so, I can't remember. There was something a little janky, and like you go.
I just loved seeing that screen though, like the menu and the map and like everything's super, like it's like brown and like it just felt very old school.
Yeah, they definitely don't care about the look of the, like, you know, they're not like Ubisoft where it all has to be, it fades and it has to be perfectly. Yeah, it has to be all
Scrunchy.
smooth. This is just like, dude, here's some numbers.
Yeah,
It's very easy to understand though. That's one of the positives.
Cool. That's really good.
What else is there? Magic is good. Anybody have any questions before we move on? Capcom is on a roll.
And you were able to sorry, but because like the first one had, like you had to, in the first one, I think you talked about this in the review. But I'm just like re-clarifying, I guess. In the first one you had to, like, let's say you wanted to be a Mystic Knight, right? But you wanted, like, leveling up mattered what vocation you had because they influenced your base stats leveling up. But it seems like in this one, just there's no punishing. Like, you could just go freely. And
you can go freely. It still does feel slightly different. And one of the things I noticed was that, so when it comes to the skills, they'll tell you what matters for what. They'll tell you, like, what attribute matters. But you're still raising others, and you still have items that raise others. So I do get that people want a mini-max. I don't necessarily know if this is the game that is about mini-max and a stat versus... Well, it is, but some of it's equipment. Like, that's the thing. And if you anybody who wants to know this, you can read an article that the Dragon's Dogma developers did about the 3 tenets of the game, which is like knowledge, experience, and gameplay and skill use. So they wanted people to go at it either with high level skill use, perfect parries, blah blah blah. They wanted people to go at it with knowledge, maps, pawns, hiring the right guys for the right quests, what weaknesses work on some enemies, and then the last was somebody who just wants to grind and grab potions and items and not worry about how well they do a skill or how well they do that stuff. That is reflected, I think, in the in the character upgrades. A little bit.
Awesome.
It's not generic. It's just that they were gonna at some point they're gonna overlap. And I do understand that somebody wants to do a Dark Soul. You know, remember when Johnny was talking on Friday where he said that one move he does is with 2 halberds and it's like an overhand strike.
Yeah, the jumping. Yeah.
I don't necessarily. That won't happen as much here because everybody will have a skill available to them, so everybody can pull it off. It's more about you do it at the right time. And do you have items that augment it, or do you have a weapon that you bought? Yeah, it's a little bit more. Yeah, which may not appeal to mini-maxers as much, I guess.
It's definitely going to be very what's the word here? Like very. Let's just say it's going to be very weird in a post Dark Souls. You know, I feel like most melee combat is Dark Souls. Like every game, every melee game is dodge and hit. You know, dodge attack or parry attack. It's going to be very interesting to see how people, like, this is just completely different. We haven't had a melee game like this in a long time. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it is definitely more Gauntlet than it is Dark Souls. You know, it's like
I like that comparison.
It's what it is. It's definitely not Dark Souls in that level. Packy was asking how many unique monsters are there. I can't tell you because I didn't count the exact number, but there are some unique monsters in this versus the first one. That kind of stuff. Can you dodge in this game? No. The game is not about dodging.
Awesome because I feel like there's like skills in there that can help you and different like for example, I think the rogue can dodge, the thief, the archer has a lot of movement
with a skill.
The spear hand with a skill.
And also,
exactly.
there's a sprint button, and in my video on purpose because I knew somebody'd ask that question, I sprint away from an ogre who's getting ready to smash me, and I'm tired.
You can jump.
And right as it comes down, I hit the burst button. I'm like, ha ha ha, and it hits right behind. So it's not dodge in the way that it's not that button thing. there's skills involved with it, and you can buy parries for like the fighter that are very specific to parry, so you can certainly do those. Yeah, you can grapple smaller guys. Yep, you can pick up smaller guys, pick them up, throw them around. You can pick up items, throw them around. It just depends on what's around. Like for example, ice will break, an ice spell will break, and you can grab chips of ice and drop it on people's heads, which I thought was pretty cool.
I just love the idea of like different classes having different ways to mitigate damage and different roles.
Yeah, they're very different.
It's just like positioning really matters in sorcerer. Like if you just have a dodge button for every different class, like you won't have that variety. I feel like positioning won't matter as much for sorcerer, for example, and it's nice to have that. Like
pawns will.
I think I saw the Mystic Spear hand had like a shield. It's really cool, like a bubble. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and a person could also play both of those characters completely different. If you hired different pawns, you could play a forward offensive sorcerer if you wanted and just be like, heal me, because you have a button that says help me, and they heal you very well. So it's like you could do that, and somebody else could be super distance and just have the pawns kill them. I mean, and it depends on what pawn you've made. Your own
are there
primary
ways to
pawn.
Heal aside from resting? Are there ways to heal? Because there's like healable and non-healable.
Oh yeah, you
health.
have the healable, not healable.
Yeah, are there ways to heal without having a mage or like without having a healer in your group?
Just
like
all
eating
the food.
Or
all the food, but it won't heal up the unhealable thing.
Yeah,
because that's really right? Just it's in D&D it's handled with like wounds and scars or wounds and like fatigue and so fatigue would be more your general health, and then wounds need a night at the local camp or whatever to heal. Yeah,
that's cool.
Water still kills you, which I hate. Deep water. Like if I put the video in where I blew up some rocks, but right after that I just leapt into some deeper water, and what's it called? The red tentacles that came up out of the water.
Oh yeah, the fucking they had that in the first
the mist,
game.
the wraith, whatever it's called. The
torment.
But that shit comes up, and I was like, oh, I forgot. I just leapt in too. I saw the water, and I was like, dude, I'm going in, and it was like, and it wasn't instant. It popped me out when I had enough health, and then killed me the other time when I didn't have a bunch of health. So there's
how often do you find wake stones?
So, do you mean port stones or wake stones to heal people or to resurrect people or resurrect? I had a lot.
Nice. Okay.
And to be honest, I'm just sitting here going, when did I get those? So some I bought. I remember. Oh, brine. The brine. Yorkie says, "Thank you."
The brine. Yeah, brine. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Okay, so I bought some. I got some for rewards, and I found some in a dungeon or in caves and stuff. That's the wake stones where you can heal yourself. And then there's the port stones for travel, which was not an issue for me. I feel that it might actually even be a little bit lean on the restrictions for travel, because money is not hard to make. You can grab stuff, mix it, and sell it for pretty good money. And they're a couple thousand, many thousand, but they're many $1,000s to buy one. Then you do have what I'm not going to say it on this podcast, but in the past podcasts, I said there might be a way to get around some of that. That is true. It is in the game. It's the first thing I checked, and there are some tricks. But, yeah, you know what's weird, man? Oh, and then there's the ox carts. So the ox carts you rent, and they ride, and then they have a higher or lower chance of being attacked. Just like your camp, you have different tent types. Like a camo tent has a less chance of an animal attacking it because they don't see you camping. Yeah,
that's really cool.
There was, and I called it a camo tent. Mechanic. It's not technically called that. But that's exactly what I took from it when I read it. It's cool. Like doesn't get attacked.
I did not know. Yeah, that's really cool.
The ox carts were pretty cool because you can snooze. So you get in it, you can hit snooze, and then if there's going to be an attack, you'll be woke up.
You wake up.
Yeah. It just
you can you don't have to ride. Oh, I think I'm gonna just ride and not sleep. Just
so it's a big world, man.
Okay.
So one time I decided, it was about the third or fourth time I decided I was gonna sit back and let it go, and it felt like those ox were true ox, because ox aren't speedy.
No,
they're burdened, and so they were just like.
Your reaction was great.
It took a long fucking time to get. And by the way, this wasn't even a huge distance. And I'm not 100% sure you're going to want to. There's video I think I show a couple times, and that's the fastest. That's like the breakneck speed of those ox in the video. And they're just like.
Very slow.
Yeah, they ain't speedy. They ain't speedy. Yeah, they were awesome to be able to do, but I would. Holy shit! Like, what if you had like a realistic stream or something where you're like, okay, I'm gonna do a realistic stream of this. I'm not gonna skip anything. I would not do aux ever. I would run. I would run because I could run and camp much faster.
In the Discord, I was streaming kicking rocks in Red Dead, so I'm definitely going to be that guy. That's just going to be the most boring
your pawns
one
walk.
Out of all.
That's how slow it is. When you get in the back of the ox cart, the pawns are like dogs. They walk
besides you.
Yeah. So they're just because they're guarding you, I guess, is what you're supposed to take from it. But they were walking. I was like, like I'm not going to sit through this. So I
might as well run at that point. Yeah.
And I do love that. Just like some of the Capcom games, there's always a little comedy. So when you snooze, you're like, and you do the head shake and stuff, and you get
Monster
up.
Hunter has that too. Yeah.
Sorry, that's what I think. What I meant. Yeah, Monster Hunter's got that little bit of comedy that fits well with
the
physical comedy,
shit.
I guess.
Yeah. Like chaotic physical. It's like, remember what I'm very excited for, except it'll be pawns, not friends. Man. Where I told you the funniest gaming moment was like when that dinosaur hit us in Monster Hunter, with my friend and stuff. I'm looking forward to these like just chaotic random things happening.
In my video, I go and attack a lizard man. I turn around and I climb back up, and I'm super excited to attack the enemy, and I didn't realize the other one had hammered me, and it's just me. It's just video of me like falling off the cliff, and there's really good moments. There's also a part in the video where I'm coming down a cave entrance, and out of the blue, this fucking lizard just cartwheels past my view. He had been hit by a pawn at some point. I don't even know when, and I'm just walking, and it's just like, whoa, and he just hits the ground dead, and I was like, that was awesome. That's the thing, is there's anarchy, and also the fact that all of them will ignore, not all of them, sorry, some of them will ignore your summons unless you like continually say come to me or what have you, and so they're exploring on their own. They're doing, they're not getting lost. They're just, if there's a big room and it's a cave and there's some entrances, there's a chance they're going to go around and grab stuff. I just want to know if when landing attack, does game freeze frame for like 1 or 2 seconds when landing attacks?
Oh, 1 or 2 frames.
I would hope so, because that's more like Vermintide, but Street Fighter is the same way, where it shows an impact in the hit animation. So there's like a pull. I don't think it freezes the entire frame, no, but I think it freezes the enemy. I will say this: it feels like you hit enemies a lot of times. It's good enough. But did I pause it, and go through to verify that one single frame has been frozen for each hit? No, I did not. That would be absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Let's see. Can Friday come sooner, please? Oh, yeah. Friday is for you guys, right? Friday is when the game comes.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow night, technically for me, it's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday for US. For EU, it's 12 a.m. GMT. So Thursday night, Friday morning.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's scoring well. I mean, FPS issues are being brought up, which is valid, but it's scoring pretty well, which is cool. I think overall, it's probably, I don't know if it's game. I don't know. Game of the year stuff sucks. I hate talking about shit. I will say it's the most fun I've had this year. What are we? We're only in March, though. We're only in March. So it's like when you compare it to what? Final Fantasy,
Yakuza, Final Fantasy.
I didn't review Yakuza, and so I therefore was reviewing something else and didn't play it as long as I think I would have, because I watched everybody else stream it in the Discord. Like Reg streamed, I don't know, 15 hours of that fucking thing. So like, it did look fun as shit though, and the little bit of time I had was very fun. But I think I like this better. I think the pure fun of it is really high.
That's awesome.
Jeff Frizzle says, I know, just finished the review. I know you don't like or advise to pre-order, but is DD2 an exception? Absolutely not. Don't pre-order shit.
Yeah. Well, the review's out now, but even...
That's what he said. He watched it and was just wondering if it was worth previewing, maybe, I don't know, to get early or whatever, but previewing normally just causes even more problems now, whether it be Steam and a unpack.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Decompress.
I think that's yeah, especially depending, like on my old PC, and it's not that old. I didn't have like a bad, I think I had like a 9700 CPU. I don't know if it's because of the CPU or the RAM, but like unpacking games, like preloading and unpacking took way longer than downloading, like hours longer. It's crazy. Yeah.
And also SSD, when they get below 30 or 40%, they get slower anyway. And since it's unpacking into a spot that's already got data that is like marked as non-usable, you sort of have two versions of the game on that hard drive. So you can go from a hard drive that has a lot of space left to one that doesn't have very much, and suddenly you've got an SSD that's like shug. And I don't really pre-order anything. I think it's faster to just download the damn thing. Just the moment it comes live, hit download versus preload. What's preload really do? I mean, well, I guess if you have a slow internet.
If you have a slow internet, basically.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
That's a utility, yeah. Yeah.
Mine's not super fast. How big is this one? Do we know? What is this, like gigs? 76 or?
I think they said 100, or not download. Like after you unpack, I think it's around 100.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I don't know how well they compressed it, but
right.
I think it says on the specs, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I don't have Steam open, and I don't remember that. I made sure a SSD was pretty much clean for when I was reviewing this one, because I just wanted to make sure that there weren't any issues on that part. But yeah, I would say when it comes to pre-order, no, man. I'm not a big fan of pre-orders. I'm not a big. In fact, I don't think we've ever.
I have no problem with them after reviews. It's just before reviews, I always go like, well, you don't. Like there's no scarcity, right? Involved.
Right there, yeah. There's not even a general idea, even if reviews are all subjective, which they are to a point. You don't even have an idea
there's no like
of what's going on.
or you don't know what to expect. It might be completely trash, It's just there's no reason to it, I guess. I don't see the reason to it other than like maybe preloading. There's no like scarcity involved unless you're getting like a collector's limited edition. Right,
because it's a digital thing anyway. Chib, $5 super chat. I asked a couple weeks ago, left early and forgot which episode. Sorry for the repeat. What's better for you, YouTube membership or Patreon? It's probably easier on Patreon just because everything is right there for me, and the system doesn't have to figure out if you're a YouTube member or a patron. So I'll just say that. I think in the end they're about the same. But what else for Dragon's Dogma? Anything else before I move on? Without spoilers, obviously.
Yeah, I think that was I think that was everything I wanted to personally know. I'm glad. I think the sense of discovery thing is like the biggest thing for me. So that's awesome. I like that the pawns are improved.
Dude, sense of discovery is awesome.
Variety.
I missed a super chat here. Greg, $5, says, love your reviews. I'm an OTR truck driver, and your podcast helped me stay awake on some of my longer trips. Keep up the quadruple A content. The Microsoft/Ubisoft level of content. Quadruple A. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Though I cannot imagine how terrible your life must be.
Oof.
If you have to listen to me. SBZ says YouTube takes 30%. Remember that. Yes. And Patron takes 50%. Remember that.
What?
So, yeah, 50? Patron takes 50% of everything, and you're not you still pay full 50% taxes because
what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, no matter
what.
Up that?
I thought it was lower. I thought it was like 20%.
Actually, they may have adjusted it now that I think about it. It may be 30%. No,
okay.
It may be 30 because it's not taxed. You still are going to get taxed on top of that.
Patron's supposed to be like the place to go to.
Patron sucks balls. Dude, Patron.
Fans,
so listen to this. Damn. When I first announced the channel on Patron, I had a lot of videos. So it wasn't like a brand new thing. I was like, okay, I'm having issues. YouTube's a disaster. I had a ton of subscribers. It was working quite well. And then two things happened. One, about a year into it, I lost a shit ton in the middle of the night because Patron banned two big-time YouTubers off of Patron. And people just abandoned en masse. I think it was over 1,000. It was like, boom.
That was like 2018, 2018. Like that,
Then, 2 years later, they, in the middle of the night, also, without telling anybody, moved all fees to the patrons and not the patron holder. So I paid a little transaction fee in the middle of the night, not telling anybody. And so I wake up and it's like, 755 people have left your Patreon. I'm like, what the shit? Why? And what is just get canceled? And I go and look, and it's like out of the blue, they just decide they're going to switch it. Luckily, they switched it back. But in particular, I can speak just towards me because gamers are, I think, pretty in the know on what's going on. And we do have some people who make videos and do stuff that's a little edgy. So those people getting banned from Patreon and stuff like that, they know. So they just react right away. There was no delay. There was no ability for me to describe anything. It was like fucking boom. And that was over half the patron instantly in one day. It was just
Fucking
like, oh,
crazy.
shit.
I remember
it's
that
all
time,
been
dude.
them. It's such a weird... It's like YouTube where they do some stupid thing and you're all, dude, what were you thinking? Like, and then they switch it back.
Blizzard,
Patrons
when Blizzard
the worst.
keeps doing crazy weird shit.
Some of these companies do. And what's even worse is when they switch it back and they'll be like,
they don't have a Steve, man.
We've heard your complaints. We've switched it back. And you're like, why did you switch it in the first place? What the fuck?
So
if you can switch
or something, right?
Yeah, because they'll tell you. That's the negative space of the conversation. They'll tell you it's super important, and then they'll switch it back. And you'll be like, if it was that important, you wouldn't be able to switch it back.
Unity,
so it's
remember, Unity was like the biggest one that was
full of shit bastards. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Cantanker Art, $5 super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat. They help the channel. ACG, longtime listener. First question. Thoughts on DD2 on Steam Deck? I'm working away this weekend. Negative. Don't attempt Steam Deck and Dragon's Dogma 2. Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to be
Legion.
Legion, it ran outside of the city pretty well, inside of the city. But the cool thing about the Legion is, and I believe PC Gamer tested the same APU, or at least within one gen, it's still going to get you a minimum FPS of 25 to 30 in the city, which isn't bad for handheld. And then you go out and it goes up much higher. They're not weak systems.
Do you think it's better, if you have a much better GPU or something, not to to max out graphics so that the load, does that make a difference if you have less of a load on the CPU? Don't use DLSS or something, or if you have
no, I see what you're saying. Dude, this comes up all the time. It comes up even in the Legion chat where you should put your CPU affinity from performance, efficient, or quiet or something. They found after testing, strangely enough, performance is worse because the GPU is waiting. And so on the GPU, if you do performance, it's waiting or something like that. I can't remember what the thing was. I've said it the way everybody has stated works the best, but they found out that the highest was not the best. It was actually one step below, so the GPU's not waiting, which results in stalled, instant delivered frames, and therefore all wonky ass frame times. It's one of those. I would say with the PC for this. I did use DLSS, for Legion, and then in the PC in cities, but it doesn't gain you very much in cities because it's a CPU issue.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So shadows and stuff like that were also they're also almost all on the GPU. It was really just sort of understand it was going to happen. And
do you have ray tracing on, or
ray tracing? I actually ended up playing mostly with it off. Ray tracing looked good while I was playing out and about. But it's hit in the cities even more. And it's then on the GPU, and now you have the CPU and GPU getting hit. And got to be honest, it looks there's some rebound lighting that looks really cool in caves and stuff like that, where it bounces on underside of a rock. But they did a pretty good job on their normal lighting. Good enough that, to me, whatever little FPS I was going to gain, or not gain, lose, and get the graphics, I would rather just have the FPS because, in all honesty, the ray tracing, me, I'm not a diehard ray trace. It has to add something. And this does, but not enough that made me sit back and go, it's unplayable. It was and it's not Cyberpunk, where everything's about ray tracing. Or Watch Dogs Legion, where they have that cyberpunk look. You want reflections. You're out in the middle of the woods. There's some rocks and some shadows. It can deal without ray tracing. Looks good, though, when it's running. But yeah, I would say Steam Deck is a big no-go, my friend. No-go. SBZ, have you considered any patron alternatives? No. Tried it before. All you do is cut whatever you have in half again, and you never ever gain. I've actually ran a couple, and they were worthless. Patrons it. I mean, and it's got integration with Discord, which I think is great. Just joining, love y'all. What's up, Anthony? Thank you very much. Are you getting Dragon's Dogma on the PC? I'm assuming. Yeah. Okay. And you have a what for graphics card?
4090 and i9 13900.
And how much RAM?
64.
you've got everything you need to get as best as you can in that game. Like,
Okay,
like
we'll
that's
see.
yeah. Like, you know, you could
We'll
possibly
see.
just run another game and still get the same FPS, but
Yeah.
no, it's you've got exactly what. I mean, you've got the most powerful, and it doesn't even need that. So I think you're in good shape as long as you understand that in cities, it's not going to be, you know. This is maybe the time where you and I need to like do a stream where we just not water cool, but like a vapor cool some CPUs and see what one of these does at like 6.5 gigs, something like that. You know?
Was it running hot? Was your CPU running hot?
No, but I don't overclock
okay.
it, which is what I was talking about. More along the lines
Yeah,
of
I
like
don't I have it
get.
undervolted. Yeah.
I have mine undervolted, a little overclocked,
A little
really
bit.
stable. But
Yeah.
and well, I guess different PCs I do have it done differently. But yeah, I would say GPU is the same, man. The 4090 is a weird beast. If you go and look, people are underclocking it by like 30% and losing 3% frames. So it's like it only makes sense
nuts.
in the because it'll be more stable if you want to do other things. You just turn down the the wattage on those things. They're an odd card. Like they're super powerful, but that upper end is it doesn't really hit it. It doesn't really ever get used. Maybe that's an indicator of where they are. Speaking of power, talk about the PlayStation 5.
Oh shit!
Pro.
Do they have a new SSD in that bitch?
That part I haven't seen. That's a good question. It's the one bit of data.
Yes.
God damn it! It's the one bit of data that I didn't
Master
see. I don't know if anybody knows. I think people were saying it was going to be like a 1 tera, but I think a 2 would be best, right? 2 terabyte would probably be your best bet. So reading these real quick. This is the PlayStation 5 Pro. So here we go. PlayStation 5 Pro. The original has 8-core 16-thread Zen 2 at 3.5. This is going to have, what has it got? 8-core 16-thread at 3.5 to 3.85.
Did you send this to me, by the way? I need to.
I will send you the.
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
You're a gamer.
Teraflops, which is a big problem because it depends on which floating point you're using, which sort of kiboshed some of this. But 33.5 versus 10 in the original. GDDR6, 16 gigabytes at 18 gigabytes per second versus 16.
Oh wow,
gigabits.
what? That's the one thing I thought they were gonna improve the most in.
But the memory.
Yeah, the GPU memory.
Well, I think we'll talk about that in a second. Memory available for games 13.7 versus 12.5. So these were now cleared by Richard Ledbetter from Ledbetter.
Wait,
yeah.
GG. This is not. Is this dedicated VRAM? Sorry.
From Eurogamer. And then they are going to 256-bit, 576 versus 256, 448 for the memory throughput. What were you asking?
Is that they have 16 gigabyte VRAM on this thing? That's not right.
That's the
not
full
dedicated
system RAM.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, what the fuck? Oh, that's a full. Okay.
Yeah, that's just the so. Anyway, what's weird about this, man? So the reason why that's a dry read is because as somebody, I think even Richard says this, but it's something that's popped around for a while, was that Sony was looking at basically the old complaints, which, by the way, one of our patrons or one of the people in the YouTube comments did state they have this issue, which is more of a resolution than a frame rate. This is not going to be doing 60 frames per second. It will in some things, but for the most part, what this is resolution using the new type of DLSS that they're using. It's a very particular system that they've got on here that's specific for PlayStation, just like Microsoft is doing their own. But it's more about the resolution and upscaling and doing the GPU stuff than the CPU at all, which...
As we predicted. We were like, they're definitely not gonna improve CPU that much, so you're not gonna see like GTA 6 at like 60 or whatever. So, and we were right.
What you will see though is what the one person in the chat said, which was actually, it hits on what this is. And admittedly, I didn't say it right away, and I should point out that for some people playing that 720p game that's upscaled on a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox, even though it looks better maybe than like what they expect. It's still got a graininess, or it's still got something, a softness, what have you. This will definitely improve that, and it's going to improve other stuff. It's going to improve other stuff as well. It's got more memory for the games, which is cool, meaning that the developers can use more of the available system memory for games. But people just need to be aware that it's not a pro. They don't get to control what a pro is. The developer, or, Sony does. And it looks like, at least for now, Sony chose more of a approach that is sort of, it's a real pro. It's just a slightly better resolution. And 30 to 60, people, man, I don't know if people just realize how tough,
Yeah, they don't. No, they don't.
Well, as we're seeing today, but getting 60 FPS on all games and all that kind of stuff, there's certainly going to be a bump, and I think games that are variable will do better for sure. But
yeah,
it's a weird one, man. It's like looking at it, there's some awesome stuff, but dude, what's the cost going to be? Like, where's Sony seems lost, man. Sony seems just lost right now. It's like, I don't know where they're this seems late. It seems like this is what gamers used to want. I know that you don't get everything you want, but people are talking more along the lines of FPS right now. Go ahead.
This is weird to say also, but for like the PS4 Pro, I feel like that one had more of a justification because PS4 already had like a massive number of next gen hitters, where PS5 for the most part, or next gen consoles for the most part, just seem to be like rehashes of like last gen, and with not that many titles that are actually next gen. It just feels like it's we didn't really hit next gen yet, unless like a game like Dragon's Dogma comes out, where it's utilizing a lot of extra shit. I just feel like we're not. It just, even though it feels late, it feels early at the same time. Like, it just feels like, wait, what? We're here now, especially with like the COVID issues and stuff. It's just a weird generation, I feel like,
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. It's just really weird because how much this will cost versus a normal one, and then if somebody says, okay, we've been touting our old versions of upscaling for so long, and maybe they'll show some pixel peeping, some polygon peering, shadow squinting. You'll be able to look really close and go, hey, look, this looks more close to 4K. But there's no new device technology, which is what the other systems were hitting. 1080p to 4K was becoming huge, and so was HDR, which admittedly HDR has sort of failed everybody. But now with these new ones, the Pro is a little weird. It's just like you're looking at it going, okay, so who's this hitting? It's not hitting. I mean, it could hit 8K, people who want 8K 30, but I don't know how many people would trade 8K 30 for 40K 60 if they've seen both devices. Because I've seen an 8K and I've seen a 4K, and if they're both good screens, I would go with 4K for cost savings as well as any performance benefits I would get.
The improvements of 8K, you don't really, you need like a massive TV far away from you or some shit.
Your pixel density is ridiculous that you would need.
Crazy PPI, right? So yeah, I don't see, unless they make like a gimmick where it's a game where you zoom into shit like under a microscope or something. Or...
Hey, that's not out of the ordinary for a company. The Kinect had its games when they thought the Kinect was the thing. That's not crazy to think that they might do that. But this does not excite me, just like the Pro didn't excite me, but it did deliver some good steps and stuff like that, which I think is the best part. But overall, what you're going to be getting is like more effects at the same frame rate, which if they go back and patch some stuff, because we have a lot of old games that like have 60 with a quality mode and 30 with 30 with ray tracing and stuff and 60 without. You might be able to see 60 with ray tracing, but that's also going to require them to go back and adjust stuff. It's just going to be a weird one, because the power is all, we were just talking about this. When you upgrade, you usually don't upgrade at all. And now it's like it's really GPU heavy on this one. It feels like to me.
Yeah, and especially because it's not really a new gen. It's just like the games are gonna be coming out on both systems anyways.
Yeah.
So I feel like
I don't know. True. They're not gonna get rid of the PS5 like, I mean, I would think that they would want to sell the PS5, but they did, the rumor is that this is a die shrink, which means a little savings. So maybe they'll push this one harder. But God, can you imagine if I was a PS5 fan or what have you, and I saw this and they were like, here's 60 with ray tracing or 45 with ray tracing on PS5. I don't know if I would want to spend $600 to get the extra 15 FPS.
Yeah, I still feel like I didn't fully
With ray
utilize my PS5, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah.
I feel like it didn't get to its potential of the worth of it yet. So
maybe in the end, what we'll actually see is when the Switch 2 comes out, we'll see all this makes sense. Like we'll sort of see where everybody fits. But I will say that I hope Microsoft's idea that they're rolling out in fall isn't a Pro and is just basically a slim of the already slim X. Well, X isn't slim, but you get my drift. Like the S one that they showed, or it wasn't S. I think that might have been what it started with, but it's circular, like the Amazon device. Where they're just sort of like it's the same thing, but it's slightly improved in multiple ways. I don't know. It's a weird one, man. I want to see what the Switch 2 does, too, because if the Switch 2 is pushing frame rate for a handheld, then we're getting really weird. Because I'm not saying this is true. I want to say the people playing will see this. If the frame rate's good on a Switch 2, but it's 1080p, and it's not as good on a Pro console,
but
that's got
4K.
like ray tracing and 4K, I could actually see, again, people looking at the handheld and going, well, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Definitely. I think people like
guess,
frame rate now way more than anything else, right?
Especially like that locked frame rate, man. That's one of the issues with the PlayStation 5, and I'm assured this will not have the same issue the 5 has, which is the variable refresh rate only turning on. I'm sure that's been fixed.
I really hope so. That's like a huge thing.
No, that would be ridiculous. Like that's I don't think anybody was expecting. And Microsoft is the one positive, I guess, of Windows, but I think that neither company is going to let that shit go. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Anybody in chat? Are you? I don't know, man. Maybe I don't know. It's such a small bump on the CPU side. The GPU side, like, will be cool. They have an AI accelerator in there for the machine learning and stuff, which is cool.
Even though we predicted this, I just felt like CPU, because people are so obsessed with 60 FPS now that like I feel like we've talked about this so many times that devs aren't really going to implement crazy systems. Like you're seeing what's happening with Dragon's Dogma, even though there's a lot of positivity around it. There's definitely a lot of people complaining about.
It's definitely, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Right. So I was hoping something, because I really hope devs continue to push. I want next gen games. I don't want rehashes of old games with the same systems, even though we're getting like amazing ones, right? Don't get me wrong, but I want to see something new, and it looks like Dragon's Dogma is one of that. Is like that. So
pixel peeping has been replaced, I think, fully by like FPS
frame
focusing,
peeping?
like frame focusing. And so probably because we got 4K TVs, where now when you pixel peep, you get to the point to where your TV might even handle the picture different. So one person's like, this is slightly grayer than the other one. You're, all right, who gives a shit? So FPS is easier to point out as a thing. I mean, I just had somebody a couple days ago who's like, dude, anything at 90 FPS, I get sick. And I'm all right, weakling, let's just decide right now to like curb humanity's weakness.
It, man.
But still, when you look at it, 60 solid is going to be really nice compared to 45 variable or something. So I definitely agree with them there, where it seems like we're hinging over there now, where everything's about frame rate first.
I think frame timing is more important, man. Like I played Tears of the Kingdom, and I after the patch and stuff, like I didn't even like, it was just a fun experience, or like Ghost of Tsushima on PS4 and stuff. But then you get some that are just like completely choppy at 30. It's just, it's very variable.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know what I expected from PlayStation 5 Pro, but I would say that for a system made 2 or 3 years ago, because they decide what they're going to do, this makes a little bit more sense. Because I think at that time there was probably less focus on frame rate that has definitely popped up in the last 2 or 3 years. And it seems to me like when you look at it from a company standpoint, sort of makes sense. Sort of makes sense. I don't know what Avoid the Void's talking about. He's bitching because you said
Abzi
something he didn't
speculating
like.
zero knowledge as always, like they didn't already launch Portal and PSVR 2 that is completely out of the market. Are you schizo-ranting? What does that mean? What are you talking about?
I don't know what that means.
Zero knowledge about what?
I think in fact
What have
I
I
was
said
the
that's
one
not true?
I was the one guessing more than you were. We can turn it on me. I was the one guessing.
No, I don't give a shit, dude. What do you like? Elaborate. This guy's schizo-ranting.
When you look at the FPS and stuff like that, I would like to see a Pro have a built-in frame gen. But I don't think that's going to be a thing.
That would be cool. Is that how's AMD's frame gen?
Apparently not. It doesn't appear to be great because, like, for example, the Legion has problems running it because they have a portrait mode. They have the weird ratio, and it doesn't work as well when you like have a different. Basically, the AI is trained on 16:9, from what I can tell, and there's certain things that have to do, at least from what I'm reading on the Legion in particular, because it does have a 16:10. Is that right? 1920x12. Yeah, that's 16:10, right?
Yeah.
So when it has different stuff, then from what I understand, it either doesn't work well or it has some kind of. I believe it might have some kind of compatibility with Legion's own software, where you hit the Legion button and it pops up. So there's some issues there. But lossless scale you can get working. So I could see a company saying, boom, here's what we want to do. I just don't know if Microsoft or Sony are going to lodge their own frame gen into a console, knowing that it's going to splinter what's already there with its FSR and DLSS, and then say, okay, now here's another one. Unless it's really easy. Microsoft more so because they're Windows, but that's the place I want to see these companies. And I know everybody's going to bitch about latency. Some of them, extrapolation doesn't add latency, but it doesn't look as good. There's ways to do it. I'm excited more for that because I would like to see. So it would be great to just get the 30 FPS, 60 FPS out of the way.
Yeah,
just out of the way, just done, and just be like 60, and then if somebody's going to bitch about it's not 90, I'd be like, all right, we're now.
It's going to happen, right?
You know,
at some point.
It will happen. But it's just one of those things that I would like to see the companies do. Sort of attempt a frame gen. Because have you tried lossless scale?
The
program I talk about a lot.
Everyone using? Yeah, I've never tried it. Yeah,
it's just insane that you hit that that you hit this point where a guy who or a private individual, will say, has created software that can do lossless scale. That can do frame gen. I just think that's awesome. We're at this cool point where somebody else is like, so I guess I'm arguing against myself because I said I didn't know if companies want to do it. If he was able to do this, maybe these guys are looking at a way to do it, or they'll add a chip that's specifically for that in the future. I would
just
love
the fact that it can be done. Like, I really want to see what happens. I really, really want to see.
I'd love for a chip that magically fixed it HDR somehow and set it up for your PC.
Yeah,
like that would be awesome to hit a button and be like, boom.
About how they will have some alien tech because otherwise the product has no market. What the fuck are you talking about? Like the PSVR 2 did and Portal, their R&D is much more expensive. Can you parse that? I have no idea what they're saying.
I have no idea. No, I have no clue. It doesn't even sound like you said. No, that's nothing you said.
I didn't say anything about that.
I think that Microsoft could leave AMD behind, work with Intel. I think that that's also something that could be exciting to see NVIDIA or
Intel. What is stopping NVIDIA? Like, you talked about this a few times. I still don't totally get it. Why don't consoles use NVIDIA?
Well, originally, the deal that went bad with Microsoft and the original Xbox, it sounds like that just soured everybody. But currently, if you look at who offers what, there's like Snapdragon and all those. There's, everybody's got their own thing. There's Intel. From what I understand, it's just that their offerings aren't as good as what AMD is doing, which also seems to be mimicked in the fact that almost everything, even I own, that's a mini system, is AMD. AMD has a very good integrated graphics processor and a very good system. Now, NVIDIA's messed around with the shield and stuff, and I had the little tablet shield. Those are pretty good, but I also, the only one I know who uses NVIDIA is Switch. And we haven't seen what Switch 2 will look like. If, like, that would be interesting. It would be very cool to see these other companies step forward. But I don't know about you, I always feel like AMD, Intel, whomever, NVIDIA are usually fighting only on one battlefront. It's usually CPU or it's GPU. Currently, GPU, I think we can all agree NVIDIA for the most part is still leading. But you look at like CPUs, there's nothing from NVIDIA, and it's Intel and AMD, and they're sort of doing their thing. But AMD's done a pretty good job with the APU, something Intel hasn't been able to do. Intel's graphics, the integrated graphics on an Intel chip are pretty shit. The ones on the AMDs are not terrible. Like I said, I played Far Cry, to test around and stuff on the little mini PC I got, the B-Link. That's fucking wicked, man.
With just an integrated graphics?
The same thing like a Legion would have or something. That they even though it's blown up to a 4K screen here and on a handheld it's usually at 1080p or 900p or whatever. Pretty fucking impressive, man. Like they're not single video, they're not a video card, but they do a pretty good job with older games to the point where you're just like, damn, and NVIDIA doesn't have anything like that. I don't know what NVIDIA has planned. But I got to tell you, whenever I hear Snapdragon, I always am impressed by their stuff. And I'm all, because they do VR, which is, of course, extra frames per second because they're doing 2 eyes and all that stuff. And I've always wondered, it's like, is Snapdragon out there, like, saying, we want to jump on your handheld bandwagon? Yeah. Or even I don't know what it would look like, but a console with that. I mean, we all see Snapdragon, we're like, oh my God, because it's VR. But at the same time, it is delivering a shit ton of frames. And they're pretty powerful now. And even cell phones, dude. I would assume most cell phones are 360 level or prior. I don't know the exact specs between the two. But
what the fuck?
Maybe
Resident Evil 4 on mobile and that new Assassin's Creed game? Like, what the hell is going on, dude?
No, I haven't seen that. Oh, the new Assassin's Creed game? That is legit. Yeah, but what were you saying? Fuck? What was the other one? Resident Evil?
Resident Evil 4, right? Is that the one? Resident Evil 4 mobile. Mobile edition. Resident Evil 4 remake on the iPhone. It's the fucking game. It's literally the game at 30 FPS. Legit, and the graphics do not look that bad at all.
That's impressive.
Like, what the hell is going on?
That's awesome, man. To me, that's just cool because mobile gamers and PC gamers think differently, which is why we don't want like the AAAs doing mobile stuff or even indies. But I would like there to be this moment where you got your handheld and it's almost as good as or cell phone's almost as good as a handheld's almost as good as a console, and then a company can go, okay, we want to release on everything. And I'm fine with to me that's the nirvana of it all, because there's just this idea of finally being able to say, like, I would like to be able to play any of my games wherever I go and stuff. I don't go a lot of places, but I still would use it even in the house, I would still definitely use it. What were you saying?
Yeah, plus I feel like things with streaming and things like quality games like that being on mobile, I feel like would have a good impact on the mobile market with, dude, you see so much false advertising. Dude, it's actually blatant. Like the mobile market for games is fucked
CGI
up. Like,
I feel like it's graphics almost. And it is illegal or should be illegal. Yeah.
And all the monetization.
It's Wild West on the mobile, man. It's
ridiculous. It feels like it has zero
Wild
laws. Like, how there's like loot box laws now and shit like that. Like, it feels like mobile is just untouched. It's like you go there, it's like they're just predators,
Yeah.
So I really hope more and more.
They're like things. They're just waiting for somebody to come to them because they can. They are predators without any. Yeah. It doesn't feel like there's. For whatever reason, it's almost like people say, "Oh, that over there, that's just Karak. He does a certain thing, and everybody lets him get away with it." That's mobiles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just mobile. We let them get away with it. And you're like, damn, son. And the closer they get, I do think there'll be some overlap where a person who maybe plays a console game suddenly can play on these other systems. And then they're like, why is this system doing this where the other one? And then you might get more of a heightened awareness from it. But we've been bitching about mobile games since it feels like 1942. I feel like we've been bitching about mobile games forever. And Yeah, they just get away with it.
Since I mean when the Snake era, the Nokia Snake era was fine, all right. We liked mobile games back then because Snake was awesome, right? But then I think it was like when the iPhone first dropped in the App Store, and then we were like, okay, some games are like $1, you know, some games are like $10, some games are free. And then I think it was like around 2012 or something, or 2011, where just like microtransactions went crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Something happened, man. You know, post Flappy Bird era, maybe. I don't know.
Post Flappy Bird. Phase 2-3. Bikini. I get this wrong every time, but $20 super chat. A lot of people think we're going back to 30 FPS. Fun fact, this gen is mostly 60 FPS. The only game stuck at 30 this gen on PS5 is Gotham Knights, The Quarry, The Medium, DD2 Unlocked, in Industria. That is untrue. I don't know what that means exactly. Yeah. I think he's just saying it's blown out of proportion and people are worried we're gonna look at quality mode above, like Final Fantasy has quality mode and then it's got its performance mode or what have you, and neither are 60.
Yeah, but those are graphics. Like that, those are just because of graphics. We were talking about like the CPU bound stuff. Like most games do have performance mode because most games did not really do anything new in terms of like what they could do with the CPU, right? Like we're just getting rehashes of old games, I feel like, which is fine. Like we're getting great games, but still, yeah.
I want to read this because this just popped up, dude. Zaxby, by the way, it's nice meeting you inside of the chat. It's been fun talking to you. He says, hey, Karak, I was watching your Dragon's Dogma review. Why was it giving me ads for female deodorant? Small point. Ads are based on you, brother. So, why is
your girlfriend smelly?
Oh, that's funny. That is awesome. I'm sure he knows that. I'm sure he knows it, but that was funny. Yeah. I was reading it going, I've done that before. Where have you ever been in like you mentioned something that you think, it's like a complaint. You're not hiding anything, but then when everybody talks, you realize it is you. You know, it is you. You're like, oh, yeah. That isn't anybody else. Like, I'm the one who is looking feminine deodorants up, and that's actually on me. That's like you and I, when I was telling you that time when we were talking on the Discord DMs, Horizon. And within less than an hour, my ads were filled with something that I know for a fact could not have come from anything else but our Discord. Something was going on there with the Discord,
Same when I got
our
a dog.
DMs.
Yeah.
Oh, were you getting more stuff because you got a dog? Like more?
Yeah. I never Googled stuff. I never Googled anything. I just got it was even before I actually got the dog. It was just when I was talking about it to people on Discord, maybe not even in like public forums, just like on Voice and stuff. And they were like, yeah, so now we're giving you an advertisement for dog toys. I'm like, damn, okay, I'll take it.
There's a great, I can link this in the chat later, but there's an incredible writer who talks about like post-humanism and cyber, the difficulties of, let's say, Neuralink and all this stuff. In phenomenal writer, he's done 3 or 4. He started out writing for D&D and like sort of helping people come up with ideas for D&D, and then sort of went from there. And he's written some insanely detailed works. But one of the things they all talk about is currently with AI, because of all the algorithms, there are things starting to appear that have helped people. So I don't know if I told you this, but the guy who had the cancer but hadn't talked about cancer to anybody, it's that he had looked up things, and then other people had looked up things, and then he had talked about things, and it all became like the AI, all the algorithms figured out he's probably got cancer, and kept showing him pictures of like what an abnormal spot on the skin would look like. Went to the doctor because he never would have, and it turned out to be cancer. So it's like this weird thing where all of the systems working together are hitting you in weird ways. So you get an
ad. To help
ad.
people.
Yeah, you get, well, yeah, but I want to extrapolate something. So like you might get an ad on the TV, and it might be about like a cancer medication. You might get an ad on your phone for something, and then on your Amazon device, blah blah blah. So it causes you to go in. Here's the weird thing: a lot of people are reporting getting a bunch of ads about spouses cheating, and so the discussion is it possible that your spouse could be talking about something? Ooh. It's listened to. It's piped through millions of algorithms, and then over a period of time, you start to see that in your ads, in the delivery of data to you in different ways, and you realize that it's not just looking at you because you're single, or because you're of a certain age, or maybe at some point you've looked up Tinder. It's actually without knowing, responding to all of the signals around you and informing you that somebody. I was just like, oh my God. Then it made me nervous. Every time I saw an ad come up, I was like, maybe this
it's
means
like a reflection
something.
of what's happening that you don't know about in your life.
It's very opaque. It's not transparent at all. It's very, or maybe the opposite in a weird way you could say. But yeah, it's all this data being translated. And have you ever heard of the, he was a futurist, Matthew, shit, I'll have to check it later. But he was talking about humans aren't made to live at light speed. And the fact that like everything will break down because we just simply aren't. There's no way for a human to identify, whether it be social media, whether it be anything else. At some point, all this data, humans will just cease. They just won't be able to, or they'll create an AI to parse the AI data. So it's, and by the way, that's what I expect. You'll get a phone and you'll tell the phone, I need information on today's news, subjected to my search algorithms, and I'll just pop it up like a search filter you do now. But how many filters down?
Dumb translator.
Yeah. How many filters down is it before you're not getting any real data? You're just getting and it's not checking that it's AI that did a video or whatever, and it takes that data, and pretty soon you're out there drinking bleach because you think that cures cancer. I'm just saying.
No,
we're screwed.
No.
I got deep.
Sorry, one sec. I just need to go to the bathroom real quick.
No worries. Deconfused says, I get ads for smoked cheese. I don't know who buys that here. Dude, I love me some smoked cheese. I want to know about the haptic feedback as well for DD2. I didn't really even get any of that. I was using, I used a 360 Elite, or maybe even a normal one on the PC, and then the Xbox is Xbox. So yeah, I didn't really have any of that. Every time I get fast food or visit Lowe's, I get ads on YouTube and Spotify and where I've been. Yeah, it's very, very. It's very nerve-wracking when you start getting ads about something. You wonder why you're getting them, which is what he was bringing up, and I just thought was funny when I was good. Well, I'd post recommendations from Reddit, communities I've never visited, from very, very specific things that I'd never searched. But I did speak one time with my wife. Oh, that's for sure going to happen. It's just like when Google said everything was anonymous in the, the anonymous mode or whatever it's called, or it should have been anonymous and turned out not to be. Abel says, remember when people used to be called crazy when they complained about the phone listening to you? Well, those people were crazy. See, that's the thing. We sit here and we're like, oh, if I say that there's a fire in my house multiple times, I'm crazy until there's a fire. And that's actually true. Robert, podcast on Friday or as well? We always do podcasts. We, when it comes to streaming on Friday in the Discord, we're going to have a bunch of people jump in. We're going to stream those, those kind of games we like to stream as a community and stuff like that. We have sometimes up to like 24, 30 people in there. Not all streaming, but we're streaming. We're talking about the game. We also don't like to... we don't like to do games that you can spoil. And with Dragon's Dogma, the honest truth is it's not really one of those games that you can spoil story-wise too much. It sort of announces right at the starting. It's like, here's Dragon's Dogma. Here's what I am. So the idea of people streaming it or something like that isn't really a big story spoiler. You could get spoiled possibly if you watch a stream, you go online, you watch a review on a monster type or something. But in all honesty, Capcom, like Square, spoils the shit out of their own stuff. So, Satya was saying, random question, but curious about DD2 and tried the character demo, but saw you could only invert one axis. Can you invert both?
Oh, wow. Do you invert horizontal?
Oh, my God. What?
That's nuts.
Yeah, I've never does he do the claw upside down like we saw?
I have no idea. Crazy. That's wild.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't know if you can invert horizontal. Yeah. I definitely only do inverted on flight sims.
Yeah.
Yeah, flight sims always
like you pull it up. Yeah.
Wait a minute. You know what's weird, though? If it's a mouse-driven game, I don't, obviously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Freelancer or... Yeah, but when you get in a flight sim, yeah, it just feels natural. I wonder at what age we identify like that as being a thing. Because I'm trying to remember as a kid when I got my first flight stick, if I was confused when I pulled up. What?
He does southpaw. Like he puts camera on left stick. But you invert it?
That's not inverting.
Oh.
That's not inverted. That would be switching which is what I do when I play shooters, like I was telling you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Can you imagine, though? Left is right. Well, I mean, I guess... So
like
if your idea is you're
right?
looking...
You pull it left. Like, yeah, you pull the camera instead of push the camera.
Bro, I just got to tell you, I love you. I don't know what the answer is, but I also think you're absolutely batshit insane if you play that way. And do you run into a ton of issues? Because I feel like a ton of games probably don't do that. Now I'm confused.
I always see like there's two options that I always go like, who the fuck uses it? You know, aside from motion blur and stuff, it's inverting horizontal and also
inverting horizontal is gonna fuck with me.
Changing the sensitivity between vertical and like having two inputs for sensitivity, one for horizontal, one for vertical.
Never.
So like you can. I don't know why those things exist.
I think it's because 16 by 10, you have more real estate unless you're at a square 4 by 3 like old TVs, or if you're 16. Like if you were exactly a square box, it would make sense to have the same. But I've gotten so accustomed to having different, you know, it does its own. I'm not going to switch it. I'm not going to turn it up for right and left and turn it down, or, you know.
Yeah.
That's just, I mean, that's like throwing your fucking buttered bread on the floor on purpose. That seems ruinous. It would be, I mean, I'm sure somebody does it, but the idea of turning up, this is what Cyberpunk does, by the way. If you looked at Cyberpunk's options, they not only have that, they have acceleration, which I want to just kick a baby down a flight of steps.
Yeah, fuck me, dude.
What
and
monster, right?
Smoothing.
What monster created acceleration like that, where it's like this this aggressive curve where you get to the edge and it's like, I'm gonna spin now. Shit, man. That makes me like get a little ill. Like, I guess I'm accustomed to mouse. That's why, you don't like mouse smoothing, you know, because it feels. What's mouse smoothing do? Take judder away? Like
it takes
or does
judder
it
away,
just
but it also makes
average?
It like it doesn't introduce input lag in that sense. And maybe like
it feels like it does to me.
The polling kind of it feels like that because I feel like the way it handles polling, it's not like
maybe
exact.
It's 2 for 1 almost
or
something.
Like, it's kind of like this when you're moving the camera.
Dude,
you know what I mean? It's
let's
like
be honest. It's DLSS for your mouse.
Yeah. Basically,
right?
frame
really
gen for your mouse.
It's 2 for 1 or something. Where and when you or scaling and when you move. Dude, I remember the first time playing Cyberpunk and I did turn mouse smoothing off because smoothing, and I just wasn't thinking. And I saw it and I turned it on and the first time I moved, I was like, "Oh my god, this is terrifying." You'll never get an answer because I really don't know what you meant. Sorry. I still don't know what you mean, but I will say the only inverted that I saw was just the one up and down. So
the vertical.
You're gonna have to, you're gonna have to look. I have
there's only
no
vertical
clue what. Sorry, you're above me, man. You're better than me. I apologize, but I don't know the answer to that. Back to the PS5 Pro real quick. So, what's the price?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm
600?
guessing it's gonna be 600. Right? What was the PS4 Pro? Was that 500 or 600?
Oh, the Pro, dude, that's a good question. I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, the Pro was a $100. Wasn't it a $100 premium on the? Yeah.
And do you think it's gonna get sold out fast and all that shit again?
Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay.
So that everybody knows, because it's brought up and then forgotten every time this happens. Those companies will fill their ship allotment and then say they sold a certain number, even though they're sitting on store shelves, or they will purposely not fill the store shelves and just peter it out. So I never trust sales numbers. This is something we just found out with PSVR. I don't know if you heard, but it's not moving, so they stopped making it. It's not currently being made, the PSVR 2. It's whatever's out in store shelves is out in store shelves. I don't trust them. So I don't trust that in particular. That weird sales thing, it doesn't seem as easy to track on hardware as it does. We used to remember when Xbox 360 and PS3 were selling gangbusters, you'd hear like sell through would be a number, which was like your true number, but companies be like, yeah, we sold 18 million. It'd be like sell through is 3 million. And you're like, there's 15 million consoles laying around?
Yeah, in the stores, right? Because they only say how much they sold to the retailers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to know. So I don't know if it'll sell out right away, but I can tell you they have to show it, and you came up with a good idea, display a game, right? It's got to be a game that somehow this speaks to. And I'm not dissing on anybody in chat. I'm not dissing on anybody out there, but they did a good job with making their Tempest sound engine sound like they had magically fixed all audio. Sony's very good at that. Sony is who you want selling you. If you were an NFL star selling your contract to NFL companies, they're the best. They could be like, yeah, he only runs a 6-minute 40. That's because he's huge and super strong. You know, they come up with some lie. So I would like to. I don't know what the game would be, but I have a feeling there'll be something, or they'll do like maybe a you know how FPS boost for the Xbox, or sort of, it wasn't every game at all, but it was like, here's a wide swath of games day one. This needs to be like, here's your improvements day one.
How does Xbox get all these things? I'm not trying to start a console. I'm not I don't have allegiance to anyone. Obviously, I have a PC. I have a PS5. I don't have allegiance to any company or anything. But I feel like there's a lot of things that like, you know, we talk about VRR. There's all these games that get like free FPS increases. All these games, this like HDR, AI HDR thing, like all that. And it feels to me they get swept under the rug a lot. And then, you know, you talk about shit like an SSD, you know, where it's like a huge thing. Like, how does that? It's marketing, right? Like, that's what you said, like selling your NFL.
It's marketing, and there's a, whether it be history or what have you, there's a hatred towards bigger companies, and Microsoft is massive. The more they announce how good they're doing, the more everybody not doing well hates some. That's just the way we are as humans. It's fine. I don't have any problem saying it. You see something doing well, and you're like, pull it down compared to my competitor. We've had it in our own Discord where we've seen people
but I feel
say,
like they're the underdog in the console market, even.
Well, they might be, you know, well, they are. But it doesn't matter, because the same excuse can be used both ways, which is that they're a massive company regardless. So you'll hear this. They're a massive company regardless. Why are they not doing better? Or they're not doing well, which is fine. They're a massive company regardless. Which is, and that's like, if you ever go to debate class and stuff, they'll be like, dude, that's quite literally like the fool's argument. It doesn't work, but it seems like it works, and it works especially well in forums. You know, where you can, or on Twitter, where you can spout something off.
Or Reddit,
Or Reddit. Yeah. It also works if it's not an argument, but you pretend it is, and it's really a stance. And I've done it. We've all done it. Where you put a stance down. It's not an argument. It seems like it's an argument. You did it just a bit ago, even though I know you didn't mean to. You said, I'm not a fan of any particular console because I have, all consoles are a PC. The amount of bad discussions that have started with that sentence is billions. Where you'll have people post and say, listen, I'm open to everybody because I have all the systems. But why is it that this one is so, you know, and you can tell.
I just want to make it clear.
I'm just saying.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Because like, I don't want, like, I'm not a console warrior. I don't like, I like, you know, everything that's, you know, I don't know. I just don't want people to think like I'm going to shill, like an Xbox shill or something, because I'm.
Well, you're like, certainly not an Xbox shill, but that, because I've heard you bitch about them a lot. But I think it also, I mean, it's the same thing. You also have great companies that give you a heritage of excellence and enjoyment and nostalgia, and you will masturbate to that nostalgia for the rest of your life, which is what has happened with Final Fantasy VII. By the way, a great game, but those kind of things resonate for years, and they resonate past generations. We have people who they have borrowed nostalgia.
Xbox shill. He said, but you kind of are. See, even if I gave a warning,
it doesn't
man.
Matter. You're not. It
I
doesn't
don't have an Xbox. I don't own one, I swear.
Doth protest too much. Here's the thing, though. When you look at it, that is sort of what occurs, I think, all the time on any of these discussions, because there's this borrowed nostalgia. There's a borrowed good feeling. And it doesn't take much. I have it for like old companies, motorbike companies or something, where they'll go to shit, but you remember the good time, right? You remember that thing. It's like friends. Maybe they're not the greatest now, but you remember when you were a kid and you had good times, and you sort of hold on to them a little dear. That's humans, man. That's the way we are. There's no real way around it, I guess, so much. It's just when people pretend it's an even discussion, then it needs to be, and it's not. And I've done it. We've all done it. I mean, you know, the more I say one thing.
Humans are
I mean,
tribal?
I've done it. Yeah, yeah, for sure. One of the best. You read that, right? The tribal advertising book from the advertiser
No.
who helped out Nike and stuff, and he talks about tribalism and how to create tribalism around your whatever the thing is that you do. And I could never get it to work, but
Do you think they
what he described was solid.
do you think those companies like enjoy or care about like their console warriors and shit, or do they just want to get away from that? Or did it that like obviously it sparks, you know, it's
Do you mean
it's marketing
do you think
kind of, they're
do
doing
you
marketing
think
for them, right?
they have a endearment?
Is this what they want type of thing, like console warriors, those console manufacturers, or do you think they just completely do not? They probably do, obviously, to a certain extent, right? They like it's free marketing for them, and they're doing it for free because everyone is just stupid.
If
or
we
like tribal or
ignore
whatever.
games for a second and you look at other
Yeah.
companies and how they do things, and we've had some on. I know some in real life, not one or two are multi-million. Most are small companies, what have you. They do not think positively in a emotional way towards their fanboys. They think positive towards the focus that person can put on their brand, but they don't think
For sure.
of them as a person for the most part. And what's weird is that it's not on purpose. It's that it becomes that. When you notice the usefulness or utility of another person, it can remove a little bit of the emotion. If somebody's really, if they're, I mean, it's happened even with me, but if somebody's like really good at something, you start to, have you ever done this? If you know a friend who's really good at something, you'll forget to reach out to them normally, but when you need something involving their sphere of influence,
and then
you
feel
reach
like a
out
piece
to
of
them.
shit. You feel like a piece of shit.
Well,
yeah,
you do if you're if you're thoughtful, not good, because we can be very bad thoughtful.
I hate
people,
asking
but,
people for stuff. Like it's like one of the worst. Like I just hate doing it.
And
but
all these companies
exactly
do
what you
it, and there's nothing wrong with them, because you can have a PR person that loves people and really does community, really does believe in that kind of stuff, but they're lost in the chaff of business, because it's almost like AI where the money is always in between the person and whatever. There's always something there that'll, never feedback exact, just like sales. You never know exactly, you never know this. And some companies don't want you to know, like Microsoft has switched to engagement, but Ubisoft has switched to engagement and then later release numbers. And weirdly enough, sometimes their numbers have matched directly with the. So then you're like, oh shit, is engagement just a new term? And it actually still means this. There's that too. I just don't trust companies.
As in, like, they're focusing more on like players.
It's like Power World saying we have 20 million players.
Okay.
But
I think
Xbox Game Pass is not a purchase; it's a subscription. So then you get this nebulous fantasy thing where you're like, player doesn't mean the same thing as purchaser. But also, I don't know about you, I don't care. So when I talk to you and you tell me you played Witcher 3, I can guarantee your ass I would never ask you if you bought it or somebody gave it to you for Christmas. I would be talking to you about the experience of Witcher 3. I wouldn't give a fuck how you got it.
Did you pay for
I don't
it?
care. Yeah, what the hell? But on the internet, that's a big deal. But because you're trying to figure out where somebody's coming from. But for you, me, the people that I know personally, I would never, I might say, did you get it? Like, if they say it's not great, I might be like, oh, what'd you buy it for? Because now you're talking about value.
If they have a hard stance on it, like if they enjoyed it or not. But
if you're talking about the experience, when was the last time you were like, whoa, hold up, how much did you buy it for?
But did you buy it though?
That's a jackass kind of, like, who would do that? But in the internet, that's the that's the thing. That's the way you discuss stuff. The experience is more important for friends, and I think the cost becomes more important for the group. Weirdly enough, I think that's also because
for like the hive mind.
Hive mind. If I tell you 60, you and I can parse 60 pretty easily. Even if you do your own money transfer, you can parse what I mean when I say 60. But if I tell you this game has a bunch of discovery and that's it, like for Dragon's Dogma, you might go, well, discovery of what?
Well, is it
but
worth
if I
it?
say I spent, exactly. So it works in different spheres. Some language works differently. You've had that though, I'm sure.
Of course.
It's like when you dumb down to a person who comes in to ask about networking, and you're all, think about 2 car lanes, which is the worst example, but we still all use it. And that person leaves going, okay. You know, and they probably do have the general gist, but it's not really a good explanation anymore of like how
It's
the
very
network
interesting just how different, how vastly, I feel like a lot of people, especially online, obviously, they're in kind of echo chamber bubbles, and sometimes obviously those bubbles collide, but they're in these bubbles, and even the online bubble with all these different online communities, the difference between how people talk about games in these online communities versus how people talk about games in real life with people that aren't totally like invested in the online discourse, how vastly different the conversation is, and how it just feels like it's a nightmare for devs compensating for that. Like how would you even compensate for all that? What do you do how do you design your game? You know what I mean? It's like, it's insane.
Yeah, I've had that exact same thing when Cadiz and I will go and work out, and I'll talk about it like I would behind the scenes, and I can just see his eyes sort of be like, "What?" There's no connection to him. It's not that there's no connection. He understands when I say something's worth it, but if I start getting too in the weeds, he's just like, yeah, because he's not a part of these kind of discussions. And you are right. Developers are trying to figure out a way to get both groups. How do you get both groups together so that people can celebrate something or accurately define a problem with a game or hardware? I mean, I dealt with the same thing. The honest truth, man. I deal with this with hardware reviews more than game reviews, by far.
Yeah.
There's always somebody who likes a shitty game. Alekine's Gun, Gene Rain, there's always somebody. Even the developer may love it. But hardware is even worse. I've reviewed hardware and had the weirdest, oddest stances come at me that are just even difficult to parse where they're coming from. And like sometimes I just have to walk away from the conversation. Either I can't understand where they're coming from or they can't understand where I am. But you definitely get it. I mean, it's like different groups. Your own mom and dad. How many times have you tried to tell your mom and dad you want the new WoW expansion? And they're like, what? I don't know. WoW. Like, WoW? Wow. You know, no. Wow. World of Warcraft. And I've had that all the time with my family. Like I told you last week, like I'm insanely hard to buy for because the tech specs don't, they don't apply. My mom and dad are like, is it bright? What are my mom? Think about this. Let's talk. How would you sell a Pro to a family member? A PS5 Pro. How would you sell that versus a PS5 to a family member? No. Well, TVs, I think TVs, brightness and stuff, but imagine selling a Pro to a to like a family member
who just plays FIFA, or
somebody says, I want to jump into gaming. They're brand new. Yeah, and there's a Pro available for, let's say it's 100.
Even if it was 60 FPS instead of 30, dude, like
it would be sort of difficult.
Legit, dude. Okay, people are not gonna like this. Obviously, like we can tell the difference between 60 and 30. Okay, a lot of people can, and it's very, very easily discernible.
Oh, for sure.
But I kid you not, anecdotally, there, casual. I have a lot of casual friends who aren't really like super, and they've been playing on quality mode or whatever. I'm like, yo, dude, look at this. You can set it to performance mode. Look how much faster. Because I'd say like faster. Look how much faster it is, and it's like, oh. I don't really, I don't feel it. I just go back to the quality mode. I'm like, dude, how do you know?
How many of your family members have interpolation on max? Right? They're playing, they got
or like the
TV
mode would have like 20,000 input lag, dude. Game mode isn't on. I'm like, what is going on, dude? So it's just I don't know. I guess it's just like experience and
We're
stuff.
That with HDR right now. I've had people think, oh, this is HDR, and you look at it and you're like, it's not even within the specs of HDR, but some company did HDR limited or what, they put an LD or an asterisk next to something.
HDR is what, how do you sell HDR? I think like now they sell it just like, oh, it's a buzzword now. Like, oh, this TV has HDR, but like what truly?
The only time I've ever been able to sell like HDR ever, and I sold it, that was my job, was having people come over and play a game and seeing the difference on both. That was the only it was impossible to explain. You can't record it. That's even better. You try to record it, you send it to it, they're watching on SDR. It might look worse, and they're all, well, I don't want this. This looks terrible. And the only time was like I had said when Kadeed came over and he was like, holy shit, that is a massive HDR is when set up right is a really large game in everything. Like the entire you've talked about it before. You like graphics effects more than like resolution sometimes. Like the lighting
style and lighting is the biggest thing for me, I think.
Yeah, lighting
Yeah.
is cool when a game just knows what it's doing, but for the most part, HDR is impossible to sell. Anybody in chat, I have a question for you. Like, how did you test HDR? Because I think most people go to the store. Do you know that there is a fake thing in the store called commercial mode, by the way?
Oh,
So
dude, is that
on
where
your
they
HDR
like,
TVs?
yeah, when you like see a TV showing something, and then when you actually get
This is why you don't buy an HDR TV off the shelf either, because they crank it on these commercial modes, which are insanely bright, but they are also insanely short-lived. They the tubes, so or not the tubes, but the technology behind it. So usually you want to not buy the one. You know, they'll be like, "Oh, this HDR TV is $500 off because it's on the store shelf." And if it's a year or two old,
and it's weirdly annoying. I don't know if it's still like this, but a couple of years ago, I was getting a TV, I think for my dad or with my dad or something, and trying to look for an HDR TV, but neither did the store owner nor anywhere, because TVs and stuff usually have specs next to them. There's zero sign of nits, and even Googling it was so difficult to figure out nits. Like, they just do not put, and I feel like that's such a like a core thing of HDR that you definitely wanna know, right?
Not only that, but like Costco will buy 10,000 units of a particular TV and then put a C next to it as their own special brand. But it'll be like the one with the worst, latency or what have you. And it'll be the same TV in a normal spectrum of TVs, but they'll put a little C next to it, say it's Costco, drop 500. Bunch of people get it for Christmas and can't figure out why a game doesn't feel good. And by the way, that also impacts 30, 60, 90, 120 as well, like your latency. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely hit game mode on my TV on accident and been all, this feels really weird. Like, it doesn't feel like I remember like I like, and then you're like, game mode is off, or if you have a TV with that. Back onto the subject for a second, because I asked some people, but David did ask a question. I have a question regarding, Dragon's Dogma 2. Does the muscle preset and the muscle strength slider work in the main game? Because in the demo, they barely do anything. I wonder if they fixed it in the game. Okay, so you're talking about the look of the character. I noticed this as well in the demo. Did you notice this?
Yeah, there's some sliders. Yeah, even the posture.
The
first one,
I
the
bitched
posture.
about the posture last time, too.
Barely. But no, there's, to answer that, in my experience, some muscle types did show a difference, very minuscule. And some muscle types just you can't see a difference with the definition.
I will agree with that. I will also say color matters. If you choose color, like for the cats, the Beastren, if you choose some colors, you can put these stripes under the pecs, which just admittedly adds shadow, makes them look bigger, makes them look more strong, and they'll do the rib shadows. So they'll do dark on the ribs, which I noticed. But I would say if I crank the muscle, I notice in the main game. But last night was the first time I did the demo, because I told everybody I really didn't want to do the demo. I was ready for the game, so I didn't do the character creator. But last night, weirdly enough, when I was making characters, I felt oddly like something was going on. And that is such a weird question. I'm glad he asked that, because I was actually telling my wife that I didn't like the character creator as much, and I felt it wasn't as wide as the game. But it translates, right? Save game works. You can move
and you can tweak after you import your character. Like, you can tweak him.
Yeah. Man, that's a good question. That is honestly a really good question. I will say this. I feel like I was able to make who I wanted up to my skill level, which is notoriously terrible for making characters. And I was able to do it in the game versus the demo. Demo seemed odd. You didn't save your character in the demo and make them in the game, or did you? Are you transferring, or are you gonna remake them?
I'm transferring my main character for sure. I loved what I made. I made such a badass dude. He's like this guy with like a crazy mustache who's seen some shit. He looks like he's like there's so much shit behind him, like in his eyes.
War.
It's weird because it's literally every single time I use a character creator and I make a character, the character, there's something, it's like an uncanny valley of the game where it doesn't really look like he belongs. This is the first time I made a character, I'm like, this looks like a character that devs handcrafted. Like, it's just, I was like, I'm very happy with my character. But
you were very happy with yours?
Very happy. The pawn I might change, because if I think about it, like, okay, so I made this like girl mage, but now I'm like leaning towards like maybe I should do like a bro, like just a bro that will be with me through everything until the end because I like that camaraderie a little bit more than a waifu character. So I might change to a dude for my pawn. Yeah.
Yeah, I did the or whatever. I did not the opposite, but I did the guy and then the girl. And I will say that, it's not a romantic relationship, so there's not that.
Yeah, because pawns are like they're like dog, like you said, like they're like
it would be
bots,
bestiality at that point.
Yeah,
I don't even know what it would be, but
they couldn't consent. Let's just say that they can't consent.
Thank you. I was trying to figure out how to say it or even what I meant, but that's exactly what I meant. It doesn't feel like that kind of relationship at all. And I'm glad it doesn't.
Power differential. You'd be grooming them.
It would be really questionable if that became a huge. Well, there's some stuff, but it's not to the point of Well,
sure.
Yeah, it's not to the point of that. That is weird. It is also the only game that has these kind of. I mean, a lot of NPCs are sort of. I'm just here, blah blah blah. But it's weird because you create a pawn. Like you're creating them, and they're going to show up. Yeah, I don't even like to think of them as kids because then it feels even weirder when you order them into battle. But I guess it should feel weird as a dog. I don't know. Yeah, it's a unique system. No other game does a system like that I know of. Like pawns.
Yeah, no other game does. It's not even patented, right? Is it? It's not.
No, that's a good question.
It's weird. Why haven't we seen it in other games? Like, I guess it was like a cult classic. Or they aren't, right?
No, they're not. That's interesting. Yeah. I hope they don't, right? We don't want anybody patented, because that system could be great in all kinds of games. You don't want to patent something like that.
Please,
that feels odd. Yeah. The only thing I know of that's patented is Nemesis, and then bits of the Disrupt engine, I believe, from Legion, but they're not restrictive. Is that in that way? Lustin says, "Is there a randomizer button in the game?" That's a good question, man. I don't know. I made my character lower left. Finalize. Nope, there is. Nope, there's definitely a button down there that says randomize. I don't remember if it's the entire character or just whatever segment you jumped into, but am I thinking of the other game I'm reviewing right now?
Ooh.
I feel like it's Dragon's Dogma that there's a randomize, but you're an absolute animal if you randomize. I don't know. I don't know. The idea of randomizing
there's so many different variables there. I wonder if it'll have constraints if it does have a random. At least I really like the way they do presets,
right?
Because you choose a preset and then you choose a similar one and then you go in and choose a.
I think a lot of people use randomize in a way that I don't think of, which is that I think they're hitting randomize and then start, but I think a lot of people use it as an infinite template. So they're hitting randomize until something somewhat cool shows up, and then jumping in. But whenever anybody says randomize in my brain, I'm like. Because me, that's how I do choices in games too, where it's like I'm boom, I'm done.
Or like D&D randomizing your skills and to know what type of character you want to play or something, like randomizing.
True. Before, right, yeah, that's true. Randomizer's my jam till I really effed one. Oh, you mean effed something up? Yeah. Let's see. So we talked about. There's really not a lot to talk about the PlayStation Pro. In all honesty, nothing negative against it. It's just there's nothing. Until we see something, there's nothing. Supposedly coming out, 2024, the end of this fall, I think.
End of this year? Before GTA 6, obviously.
Right.
So they're trying to hit that.
That's the last thing I want to hit on the PlayStation. We talked about this 2 weeks ago, where I was like, it would behoove a company to release. It would not to create the R&D, but if they had something somewhat ready, and they were able to release with GTA, it's the only game in the world, I think, where you could say, let's somewhat. So if the PS5 Pro comes and it's not going to hit 60 FPS, I don't think.
No,
but if it's super high resolution, it didn't get much. I think there's a turbo boost 3.85 that you can use on the.
Maybe it's the difference between having a massive lawnmower next to you or not, like the PS4 versus PS4 Pro for Red Dead.
Oh, you mean silent, quieter? Yeah, it is I'm sure it'll be more energy efficient and stuff like that, and maybe it won't look like the Tower of Sauron or whatever.
Maybe it'll actually a better design
or a router. I guess it looks more like a router than anything.
Linksys,
it's not a pretty system, that's for sure. But overall, yeah, GTA. That would be, dude. You know, if you're releasing one, you could basically just be like, hey, here's our new system. We're selling it to the the people who really like tech, who have a lot of money, and then also, GTA 6 is coming out.
And you'll also get a lot of people buying the Pro and reselling their normal ones or giving it to their brothers.
Scalpers, right? I think that's one of the, one of the things we have to worry about, unfortunately. Scalpers are going to be probably your worst part of all of this. Is everybody I know who wants to get a system, I always feel like can't. The only time they get a system is 6 months later when they're able to actually, sort of purchase it. And then also, we didn't talk about this, but Horizon Forbidden West has sort of been lost, like we worried about. But that's coming out. Yeah.
That's cool, because I definitely have that in my... I feel like after Dragon's Dogma, I don't know if there's like a game I'm super excited for until Stalker. So around that, I will definitely be playing Horizon, because I really want to double dip on that game.
Yeah, I'm going to play Horizon for sure again. Can't wait. I really want to jump into that. Did you also see that Remedy's sort of in rough shape financially? Did you see that they were announcing?
I know they're in rough shape.
Or maybe not financially. That's the wrong way of putting it.
Yeah, I thought that Alan Wake 2, even though they're really happy with the sales, because it's I think their fastest sold game. It's still I don't know if it crossed.
It hasn't made money yet.
Yeah. Hasn't made money yet, sadly, because it's an amazing game.
It's a freaking
what
awesome game.
Is there more news on Remedy? I know they're trying to become independent more.
Yeah, there was a news announcement yesterday, and then as I was scrolling through the news today, I saw it pop back up, and it says Capcom is aware of the FPS. Yeah, in Dragon's Dogma, of course they are. Remedy Entertainment financial statements released December 2023. Challenging year results in 2 established franchises after the successful Alan Wake 2 launch. So I think what they're saying is they're releasing, they're still sticking probably with Control, right? And then Max Payne. So
they're remaking. They're like a big remake, I think, with a big budget remake, like a big budget remake for Max Payne. But you got to also keep in mind that 1 and 2 are going to be together as one game. So that big budget is going to be.
Oh, say that again.
I think what they're doing there, it was like confirmed a while ago. Either they're going to be bundled, like you just choose part 1, part 2, or I think it's going to be one big game where it's like the opposite of Final Fantasy VII, where they're not making each one separately, but they said the remake will be the same budget as Alan Wake 2, so it's going to be like a big budget full remake title. Yeah,
gotcha. Yeah. So a couple of these games, just looking in the news, a couple of those sort of got lost, and then Rise of the Ronin comes out this week, Friday as well. Is that right?
Rise of the Ronin comes out the same day, so Friday. Yep, Friday at 12 a.m. For each locally, obviously that's how consoles.
What's everybody getting in chat? You doing Rise of the Ronin or Dragon's Dogma?
I guess.
And you're doing both, or are you doing just Dragon's?
No, Dragon's Dogma. Dragon's Dogma, like Rise of the Ronin. Well, I mean, I'm super unsure about Rise of the Ronin. Like, it's been all over the place. I guess I'll wait until NC embargo. I loved maybe. It feels it hurts to say that, but I loved. Like Team Ninja, man. I loved Team Ninja, but I feel like the last really good game I played from them is Neo 2. Even though I enjoyed some of their others a little bit, but Neo 2 was like my favorite Souls-like, right? So it's crazy. But, Rise of the Ronin is something I was hyped for longer than Dragon's Dogma, because they revealed it earlier. I really, and I'm watching a lot of, what's that show called? Shogun, which is getting me, in the mood for
Stoked
a samurai.
up for it. Yeah.
But as far as gaming goes, like I'm just all in on Dragon's Dogma. I haven't thought of when I would play Rise of the Ronin. Hopefully, I want every game to be good, but I have my reservations about that.
It's interesting too, because Rise of the Ronin is exclusive, and when you look at Horizon Zero Dawn, it's going to PC, which is the bigger market technically. Yeah. When there's fucking everybody with PCs. And even that one's sort of getting lost. Dragon's Dogma's got its FPS issues, but it seems like it's reviewing incredibly well. And at least from what I'm reading, most people in here look to be skewing that way. It does feel like it does feel like in a year or so, maybe not a year, maybe a couple months, a lot of these companies are going to look back at this release schedule and go, yeah, that was not the best. Those were not the best plans.
And when are Horizon devs gonna learn, man?
Well,
it's become like it was a meme. We're like, yeah, they'll do something stupid again with release times, but it actually happened, and it's kind of weird, man. Like I feel like at this point they gotta be doing it on purpose, you know?
And what sucks,
like they can't be that
this
out
is
of
the
touch.
honest truth, man. I love and did not expect, but I love the Horizon series. I think they're phenomenal graphic games. They have an awesome atmosphere, and they have pretty good combat overall. And they've got great enemies. I like the fucking dinosaurs and Neon.
Very unique combat.
The idea that they get lost multiple times, even though they sell well and stuff like that, but they still get more lost than they could. It's frustrating. But I don't know if it's their choice. I mean, they delayed Alone in the Dark, delayed it, also got lost. I mean, I think the reviews today for Alone in the Dark, I think. Maybe it was a couple days ago. I can't remember. But there's a lot of titles in this small section. It feels like everybody moved here. And then you have other small games that I think are stealing a little bit of the money. Not Limelight, but Balatro. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
dude, that one did, here we go. 1 million copies across all platforms less than a month after release. Then you have Pow World. And then you have,
one dev,
what's the other one?
Just a random, I don't know what he's made before, but I know it's one dev that made Balatro.
True.
It's insane.
It is one dev. It's just that it feels like a lot of these guys are getting lost, but I don't know when they would release. Next month seems pretty dead.
On Steam.
Well, yeah, it's his. You mean, what do you mean?
It's
his
like
first
on
game?
Steam, the developer does not have any other game than Balatro.
Oh, really?
Maybe he worked in another company or whatever, but that's just success like that is just ridiculous. Like it hasn't been much. Like him, Stardew Valley,
Pow
like
World.
Phasmophobia and stuff.
Pow World wasn't one person, but did they have a game prior? Maybe they had a game prior.
They had games.
Yeah, they had a game prior.
I think.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Which really cool to see. Yeah, Banishers, man.
Oh, Helldivers 2.
Banishers
Somebody
got
just,
lost.
even though Helldivers 2 is Sony, but yeah. What'd you say? Banishers? Yeah, Banishers got lost.
Man. It's, and to me, man, like Banishers is a must-play game. I legit am saying that it's a must-play game.
If you like story action games, it's for sure must-play. Like it is.
Yeah, if you like
definitely
story, of course.
Yeah.
If you like deep dialogue, deep choices, really good. If you like good games, yeah.
Games writing is next level, man.
Oh,
like when you
man,
see
yeah.
Dragon's Dogma, when I was
It's
playing
a
Dragon's
benchmark.
Dogma, it is, and trust me, if you were to go and play, the combat is a billion times better in Dragon's Dogma. It's not even the same style of game anyway.
Sure.
So
yeah.
it's hard to. But dude,
it's like the opposite of Dragon's Dogma, literally.
Yeah, it's like it matters stuff, all this stuff, and I play Dragon's Dogma, and I'm just like, damn, it's not. I don't know, man. Sometimes I think not all games. Maybe it's better that they're. It sounds like I'm a little bit of copium, but I'm just wondering sometimes if a game did hit in all those, if then you would it pull you away? No, because Witcher 3 had a good story.
Yeah,
Witcher 3 had a really good story, so I guess it wouldn't pull you away. It's just rare. It seems like all these games are missing something. Have you noticed that? Even if they hit everywhere, they're miss on technical stuff. So you were talking about Pro. You were talking about it doesn't feel like the gen is, what did you say, started, or that we haven't had like a
truly next gen like games pushing it forward in terms of tech.
So
other than graphics, obviously, and like loading.
So if Cyberpunk's story had been amazing and it had no bugs, would that have been that would have been one, right? That felt like we were.
What I mean, see, Cyberpunk, I think it does some incredible things, especially with dialogue and the way it's presented. Like, it's the presentation of story is even better than the story itself. I feel like just like being immersed in those dialogue, but I'm not talking about like that sense of things. I think I'm thinking more like in terms of systems in a game where dynamic, like how dynamic it is and dynamic things happening, dynamic NPCs, just living in a world where anything can happen, and not being a game geared towards like, hey, I go from quest to quest. Like the overall macro of a game, I feel like hasn't gone crazy forward yet, other than, believe it or not, I know a lot of people don't like this game, but like Starfield, where there's like stuff that's just like that can happen wherever. Even though like it doesn't do presentation nearly as well as Cyberpunk, is, dialogue isn't not nearly as good or stuff. like that. But
But maybe
or like
merging those together or something.
like just having like Sandbox, you know, GTA 5 is a sandbox. Dragon's Dogma looks to be like a sandbox. You know, like we've mostly been this gen and most of last gen we've mostly been getting games geared towards completionism, getting all these trophies, completing the game, finishing the game. We haven't been getting many games where it's like being in the game and just like being a part of that world as much.
I get
you know
that.
what I mean? What I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Which is very CPU heavy, because like to have all these systems interacting with each other and dynamic nature, I feel like is going to be very CPU heavy, you know, to have unique stuff happen in your game rather than just like a choice or whatever.
I feel like almost every game I've liked in the last couple of years, but I also do believe, maybe I have a good memory or maybe I just hold on to hatreds. I also believe this is replicated all the way back to the Genesis. But I feel like every single big game I like, there's always something. There's always some pillar that hasn't been hit. You know, there's always something that doesn't, you know, even Baldur's Gate, admittedly, Baldur's Gate's pillar is Act 3. I'm sorry, but Baldur's Gate, when you play Baldur's Gate and you're like, oh my God, and then you get to Act 3, you're like, oh my God.
A little bit.
It's just, So I don't know. So it's a weird conversation because I don't know if I agree. I don't know, man, because I feel like we might be a little bit jaded. I might be jaded because I saw the switch between 2D and 3D.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a switch that was so profound that the only one that comes close is VR.
That's
there
very
is
true.
no, you know, it's a dimensional change. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, dude. Baldur's Gate 3 has amazing
I know where you're coming
choices.
Yeah.
But Baldur's Gate 3 has amazing choices and everyone's playthrough is going to be different, but it's still not a sandbox in the way I'm thinking. It's not like you know what I'm saying? Like it's not like a thing where you just go into the game. Obviously a lot of things can happen, but all of it is scripted. Even though there's a lot of different branching storylines and everything, a lot of it is it's not, other than combat. Combat has a lot of systems interacting with each other. Like you can do, it's almost immersive sim in what you can do in the combat. But like being the world building itself isn't as dynamic as a sandbox that I'm thinking of in that way. You know what I mean? Where anything can happen like randomly. That's not scripted. Yeah.
I just wonder if that's a game.
Yeah.
Like what is that but pure anarchy? At some point there's gamified elements that then draw everything down to be tracked and platinumified. And I'm just wondering if there's an ability for somebody to be as flexible as you want. Yeah. Like, I'm really wondering that. Admittedly, I think Cyberpunk did have some ideas, but it's so vastly missed in so many places that I don't even know why I bring that up anymore. Because it's much farther away than it is close to any of the things I wanted. It's actually farther away than it is. You know, if it was 50-50, it's more like 20-80. So I don't know if that's a good example. Yeah.
One thing, you know what, I completely forgot about this. I think a lot of people forgot about this, but one thing that was really cool, which was kind of which was really cool, honestly, was the Dead Space remake and what they did with New Game Plus with the AI game director. That doesn't get talked about a lot, but I think that was really, really cool, you know?
And it came out, it did well, and then it went away. And I also, the only ones that stick, I feel like are, I don't know. I don't even know, and they're not always good, obviously, because the ones that stick may be sticking for a bad reason. But yeah, it's like a lot of games aren't sticking, even though. See, I feel this way about the 360, though. I think I saw somebody in here saying, you remember this system for this and this for this. I certainly don't. I remember 360 for Dead Rising's number of zombies, but I don't remember it for Excellent Quest because it had the escort quests, and it had, and maybe that's because I go back and play them, but and I'm not saying you don't, but sometimes I'll hear somebody wax poetic about some old game, and I'm like, dude, I just played that fucking game, and I don't even know where you are compared to the reality of the game. Like, they're not at all. So, what would you, if you want an open world sandbox like Minecraft? When did Minecraft come out? That's a good example.
Skyrim's a good example, dude. Skyrim's a good example.
Well, Skyrim's a good example, but Skyrim had so many issues, Dave. Maybe it's just me remembering this, but Skyrim had crashes, FPS issues.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't... I remember
the
Skyrim
zeitgeist of
later is what I'm
Skyrim.
saying.
Yeah, the zeitgeist
Yeah.
of Skyrim. I feel like the X factor there was just like being in that world, not knowing
Yeah.
what to, just going, and then like a dragon drops, like random shit like that, where you know, every time, unless you look up something, every time you go into Skyrim or do a new playthrough, you're just like in the world, like you're in a fantasy world. You know what I mean? Rather than like the difference between that and Witcher 3 is like you're going around. Man, I'm not saying any of these is bad or good, by the way. I'm just saying like there's different styles of games. Like the difference between a sandbox versus like something like Witcher, where it's way more quest oriented, where it's
right.
like a lot of very, very good scripted events that happen. You know what I mean? But it's not being in a world in the Witcher 3 world is not the same as being in the Skyrim world. Skyrim
Right.
doesn't have nearly as good writing or quests as Witcher. What it does have is the sandbox. Like that's the difference, you know what I mean? And I feel like way more games are lean towards that quest based. I think maybe because of Witcher 3, I don't know, lean towards that quest based you know, more scripted rather than like sandbox style games.
You know what's even crazier, dude, is I still remember when it was mostly first person wasn't as big for a while. And then you would hear everybody say, "Oh my God, everything's first person. Oh my God, everything's first person." Then everything's open world. For the last like 2 gens, I feel like everybody's bitched because everything's open world. And that's where I guess I'm looking at is like, what's next? VR, it was the big idea I had. I mean, I felt like VR, if it had nailed it, VR could have offered another dimension of stuff, a completely different thought process. I think AR does it sometimes. But I just don't know if these consoles, which are going iterative on everything, are going to ever offer whatever it is people are looking for. It's like it's just offering more ray tracing, right? And by the way, this was just brought up. This is actually a discussion that I do agree with. People were saying, is it possible that because everybody's so focused on FPS that no one's discussing the game? And I went to a forum where, no lie, there was nobody discussing a game. It was all the it was a review thread. It was to discuss the game. And anybody trying to discuss quests or story or anything was just shouted down to talk about the FPS.
Yeah.
And so
absolutely.
That was weird too. That's why. Yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know if like the console. What can a console deliver on a TV and all that stuff that I haven't seen? I think Elden Ring came. Elden Ring made a change from that Dark Souls. Everybody's funneled down a spot into an open world. That's probably one of the bigger ones. In fact, I would say I personally believe that Elden Ring is a bigger transformative across the board than Baldur's Gate. Even though Baldur's Gate did really well, and but it's built on a D&D system we've all seen. Well, I've seen before, but people have seen before. But Elden Ring took a change I didn't actually think was possible. I was sort of a naysayer, man, because I was like, I don't know. I feel like everything they're doing is built on a very specific path where you have to be funneled down. And I mean, those funnels are still there, but goddamn, man, that game. I'm not even a Dark Souls fan, and that game is like wicked. You know, I like some. I don't like them as much as you. Neo still got better combat. Neo 2.
It's like I mean, Breath of the Wild did it.
No, Breath of the Wild did.
First,
yeah.
Where,
do you think Breath of the Wild did, and Breath of the Wild did more than Twilight, right? Or sorry, Tears of the Kingdom.
Okay, that's a good question. So yes, so Breath of the Wild completely changed people's expectations of open worlds, I feel like, and how open, because people were fed up with open worlds, because open worlds were starting to be samey, where you go from point to point, and then Breath of the Wild came in, and it's like, this is going to be more like, they compared it to the NES Zelda, where it's like they just throw you into a world and it's all about like exploration and sense of discovery. And then games started, and then Elden Ring was the one that capitalized fully on that. But yeah, Tears of the Kingdom just elevated the
already
like the
established
immersiveness.
Yes.
Well, obviously it made it more dense, and it elevated the sense of like you can tackle combat whatever way you want, with obviously the biggest example being like the building, right? Building stuff and you know what I mean? With Elden Ring, I think it's very similar to Breath of the Wild, what they did with their open world, but just capitalized on like their level design was just really, really good, very incredible. And level design was like the core pillars of what From Software have in their games, in Sekiro and Dark Souls and stuff. But they were able to translate that somehow very well into like the world design itself, like not even the micro level design, but also the macro level design of how the different sections and dungeons interact with the game world itself.
You know
which
what's going to be
was really
interesting,
incredible
dude?
to
What
see.
you just said and Rise of the Ronin. And because that game is from developers who are normally in the Dark Souls style, not difficulty or anything like that, but in the more filtered linear level, blah, 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 blah. Even, well,
Yeah.
not always, but even if you look at like their past games, they're sort of hub-based, whatever. And then you go to this, there's going to be a lot of discussion, I think, around, you know, this is not a condemnation at all about that game, but there's going to be a lot of discussion about just because you can, should you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and if you do take that chance, where does that leave you if it does or doesn't hit? Does it leave you, for example, big question in my head is like, once Elden Ring's done, does FromSoft ever go back?
Mm-hmm.
Do they ever go back to a Dark Souls,
That's a good
Bloodborne?
question.
That I do not know the answer. I've wondered about this because open world captures a whole other group of people that will not want to go back, or lesser than. You're focusing it again, where open world it was more accessible. It's going to be fascinating to see.
What would they do, like to the level? Like, what would they?
Right?
What
Do they
would
have to
in
improve
store?
in that part now because they made the improvement on it? Yeah. Real quick. Super chats. Northern Berserker, $7. Skyrim's a fantasy simulation. Swords, magic, and dragons. It's all there for you. The best part about Skyrim to me was their own patches fucked it up. I loved it. Flying dragons flying backwards and shit. Everything about Skyrim was so jank. I never knew if it'd run, but when it did run, it was fun to just jump in and do stupid shit. Also, because it was easy to live. I mean, you could die, but that game is pretty easy. And it was just fun. You could just go and hammer some metal and make yourself a sword and then go off. And I would spend hours just making different swords down the list, or different, different type of weapons. RS, $5 super chat. Sorry if this has been asked already. I just joined. But are you worried about the kernel level anti-cheat tamper that keeps getting added to games? Am I worried? Man. I mean, I don't know if I'm worried about that in particular. I don't like it, but I'm more worried about that causing an issue where somebody can get in. But I mean,
I'm not a huge fan of cheating, obviously. I'm not a huge fan of anti-cheat either, or the way it's implemented now on a large majority of games. It's weird because I feel like it's one of those things that doesn't have an answer, because if they adapt anti-cheat, the hackers will adapt too, and it's just gonna keep going up and up and
leave
up.
well enough alone. Sometimes it's best to just leave well enough alone and be like, because you hear about that all the time. We've heard about it from hackers. Oh, this company's created a new thing. Well, let's see if we can break it. And you're like, damn, we shouldn't have told anybody we did that new thing. So, but isn't it weird that in a weird way, anti-cheat is sort of like anti-steal, like piracy? It's like they add a system and then somebody, and then by the way, it's not super big deal, but it can happen. But torrents were a big deal, and suddenly there were more viruses because people thought, I can tell you're getting a free game, but I can also, put something in there. I don't think that was as big or blown out as well. If it was eDonkey or the old ones, there was a lot of viruses. But now you have Virus Total and all that. But these both are always like, I don't like cheating, but I don't like anti-cheat. I don't like piracy, but I hate DRM. And it's
like, where do you win? Like, what?
Dude,
what
there's no way to win. There's no way. You just like we said, maybe sometimes just don't mention anything. And
just bite the bullet.
Yakuza, the new one, still has not been cracked, I believe, and that's the longest time. So whatever they're using, and I don't know if that's an issue with the cracker teams, and there was some drama there or what, but that hasn't been hacked yet. So it's like, are there games out there using a type of protection we're not aware of too? It doesn't impact whatever, but it's good, and they don't want to tell anybody. I could be wrong on that. That could be drama within the I guess that's what I'm saying is, it's almost like whenever somebody does really well in the stock market, maybe don't tell everybody because maybe somebody's going to try to hack your PC. Answering these last questions in the Discord, Pippaman, with the PC5 Pro specs running out there, are we going to see mid-gen refreshes like this be worthwhile? I think we've covered that. We don't know yet, but it doesn't feel
I don't feel it's worthwhile. Some people will find value in it.
You know what would be great, Abzy, is pretty much the same cost, bigger hard drive, cooler system. Then if you were getting one, you could get that instead. But I think getting a current owner is going to be, this economy isn't great. Yeah. It's like you gotta show me something big before I'm gonna leap into. I mean, I'll do it because I'm a reviewer, but
Yeah,
a normal consumer,
you're gonna want to test on. Yeah.
Yeah, a normal consumer, Dude, how many people do we know still had a PlayStation? You know, I'd be talking about the Pro or even the fifth one. People would still be on the PS4.
I had the original PS4, the whole from 2013.
Never had the Pro, right?
The same one from 2013, and it lasted me, and I played everything on 30 FPS, and it was fine.
Good systems. The original Xbox had more issues, but PS4 in particular was good.
An amazing. PS4 had amazing games. It was a really, really good gen. It was a really good life cycle.
And you could say the controller added some stuff with the. I didn't like it, but the sense that, you know, you had the touchpad and. You know, you have the triggers.
PlayStation. I hated PlayStation controllers until the fifth. Like the biggest 5, improvement for me. Yeah, the biggest improvement for me is the controller for PS. I love the PS5 controller, but before that, I just did not enjoy PlayStation controllers. But yeah, DualSense is awesome. I think
DualSense for the most part has,
other than the battery, right?
has been their best to me. Probably their best control. Yeah, other than I mean, I'm not even taught. Yeah.
yeah.
Feature-wise, I'm not a big fan of the triggers at all, but I can turn them off, so it doesn't bother me. The touchpad's there, and if they use it, that's great. It's got is gyro, which we've seen in some games. I would say that's one place where Sony hasn't taken advantage, where I don't hear a lot of you guys in the Discord talking about the gyro aiming in a first-person shooter game as much as you would
weirdly
think.
enough, where the gyro worked the best for me was on the shitty ass Joy-Cons on the Switch with like Splatoon, because just being able to separate them and just go like this just to fine-tune your aim was really, really beneficial.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, it's like the pro version of controlling, and it's why a lot of people don't know it's like a pro, where it's like, oh, the gyros improve what's there. But if what's there's not bad, most people aren't going to use gyro. They're going to use their thumbsticks. And have you ever turned gyro on an accident and you're playing and suddenly, you know, you see your cursor go up or whatever, and you're like, what's happening? Oh, I got gyro on. So, yeah. Helldivers 2, this is Sailor, says Helldivers 2 new stratagems being tested, such as Silo Missile, Commando Rocket Launcher. Oh, he's just saying, did you know about these, I'm assuming, because you still do.
I don't, but Jesus Christ, these devs move fast, huh? They just fucking... They're just adding shit.
Yeah, they're doing really well. Sick. They're doing really well. Next up, Brash says, not sure if it's ever been discussed, but I would love to see Larian tackle Shadowrun. What pen and paper RPG would you like? I don't want to see them handle. I would have liked to have seen Cyberpunk or first. I want a first person without. There's not even because.
I'll take it, dude. I'll take it, man. I want new Shadowrun games. Yeah. I'll take it. You know?
Is there another?
I would like them to. I would like to see Larian's take on something that isn't fantasy, like something sci-fi or cyberpunk, dude.
Which
100%
goes against my argument, actually. But I agree. Yeah,
kinda.
That would be
cool to see what they could do.
Like, oh my god, imagine they're writing in XCOM. That would be fucking beyond next level. Imagine they were like, we're teaming, we're gonna do XCOM, but we're writing all the shit. And it's a full story with all these characters. That would be fucking awesome.
That'd be very, very cool.
Yeah. I'd be behind that.
Yeah.
Because Soab says, thank you for answering my questions. And sorry for having too long last Saturday. Oh, yeah. Last Saturday's question was ridiculous. We tried to get through it, but your question was long. Number 1, is Dragon's Dogma 2 going to be another classic? Is Dragon's Dogma 2 considered a classic, or is it just considered?
Classic.
Is it? Okay.
It's
I think 2's going to have commercial success as well.
Yeah, but I think legitimately there's no game like Dragon's Dogma. I've never seen a game like Dragon's Dogma. Like in all ways.
Without hyperbole, I would also say that it's got enough systems in it that you will not play another game and go, this feels just like Dragon's Dogma. There's more than enough weird things going on. It's even hard to...
It's definitely on its own... It's its own thing. Yeah.
And hopefully... Yeah, no, maybe I don't want other people to do it. Dragon's Dogma feels weird. It feels like Warhammer RPG because it's low fantasy, but when the spells finally do get cast, they're ball-rending. But then, like, you can... Yeah, man, that is a weird game. No, it's a very unique game.
I'm very happy, though, that a lot of people, like, even this week, last week, like, these couple of months... like new players just, you know,
It's awesome.
they beat Dark Arisen and they're like, yo, this game's amazing. What the hell? Where have I been? You know, it's cool to see more people play it, because it's definitely one that got swept under the. I mean, I didn't even play it until you I think it was either your review or you told me about it in a podcast.
Dark Arisen though, right? Yeah, Dark Arisen.
Yeah, because like I remember back in the day when Dragon's Dogma came out, the only thing I think I watched like Angry Joe's review or someone else, and the only thing I kept hearing was like no fast travel, and people being like, "Oh, we have to run back and forth with no fast travel."
Dude, it's not overblown, and I love it. But there are ways around it. But it is for sure the thing that, and I've heard people say I don't want to jump into it because of that, and I'm like, it's not. I mean, it's workable. But yeah, it's definitely not just hit a button. That's for damn sure. Next up, with news about PS5 Pro specs, is it worthwhile to get? I think we've talked about that. And then makes me wonder now if PS5 6 would be heavy on AI systems. I think all chips are going to have AI subchips. That seems to be the thing. Like put an AI accelerator there and train everything. I'd like to see them train better audio. See, machine learning is different. I think people are vastly misunderstanding AI chips. I think they're thinking AI chips and GTA AI characters,
like NPCs,
but
not like
but
performance
not
enhancing
machine learning and sample taking and stuff like that. And because it's the same word, so I get why they are. But I have a feeling a lot of people are thinking, "Oh, this means something will happen over here," and it's like, dude, those systems still have to be
AI
completely machine learned.
Yeah, it's a very, very broad term, because you can
a terrible term.
Literally, because you can literally refer to like you by saying AI, you can say legitimately, because it's an artificial intelligence, someone hard coded like if statement, like a bunch of scripting.
Yep.
Or it can mean like machine learning,
or it can be like, large language model voice. It can, dude. It's a bad term. Like, hopefully these
just
companies figure out
artificial
a way to do it.
intelligence, but now it's gotten a bad rap all around.
Oh, that too. That too. No. Like, it'll be interesting to see if people misinterpret what's going on, or if we are. But when we do hear about the PS5 Pro, because it has a AI accelerator, how it's used, and if somebody tries to like say, well, the artist, we're going to draw a 30 of those 60 frames that it's interpolating. What about the artist who draws frames? And you're like, dude, that's not how it works. But I guarantee you, somehow some group is going to figure out a way to bitch about that.
It's crazy because for the longest time, I feel like people have been wanting better AI for NPCs, better AI for NPCs, better AI for NPCs. And like, for example, Ubisoft introduces something about like trying to enhance, like introduce a dynamic AI. And the amount of hate it got, it's like, oh, this is terrible for gaming. So it's an interesting discussion, because I can see where people are coming from, and I don't know what the improvements to NPC can be like. You know what I mean?
So we have a second. Let's talk about that. So the other question was, they're showing at PAX, it looks like the DLC for a Final Fantasy, I guess.
I think not PAX, the other one, what's it called?
GDC.
GDC. Is that what's happening right now? Yeah.
It's Final Fantasy 14, The Rising Tide, is that right?
Oh wait, what? What's that for?
He just says Sailor says FFXVI. No, 16. I'm sorry.
16. 16's new expansion. Oh, The Rising Tide. Yeah.
Showcasing a PAX East panel.
PAX East. Interesting.
Okay.
I didn't play the first DLC yet. Yeah.
So
I'm guessing this one's the Leviathan DLC. Yeah. What's up?
I haven't even turned, like, I don't even know where Final Fantasy 16 is on any of my systems. I don't know if it's uninstalled or what. I played it, done. I probably won't do the DLC. I was just going to talk about the Ubisoft thing. So what they're doing is they're using their own AI systems to increase authenticity with the characters. But one thing I did like was, if you read the document, by the way, I'll post this in our chat. One of the things I liked about this is they were saying that none of it is by itself.
Yeah.
At all. It's all hand touched. It's simply using those systems. Yeah, it's enhancements, and it's using those systems to create characters and then dialing them down where they maybe go crazy or what have you, and making more realistic characters. What's interesting about that, dude, is I don't know if I want more realistic characters. I want characters that are still gamified, because I don't want everybody to freak because I haven't showered in the game for 24 hours, right? That's the
Yeah.
problem, is where it's going to depend on every game, right? It's going to depend on, are you true sim or are you
Yeah.
Legion, which I have a soft spot for Legion. But
Sure.
what they're talking about, this bothered me. Now, let me explain why before people get mad. They talk about catching bias. Did you read this in the Ubisoft document?
Where is it exactly in catching bias?
It's about halfway down the Ubisoft document. So I'm going to read this.
Okay. Yeah.
This is from Ubisoft itself. They say, as we talk, the team keeps returning to authenticity or soul. There's a keen sensitivity towards bias and stereotypes within the large language model and its influence on character design and behavior. Let me explain why this is bothersome to me. We created a physically attractive female character, and its answers veered towards flirtatious and seductive, so we had to reprogram it. To me, that seems as if they are trying to purposely catch it and neuter it. Why would you want to remove? If I create a huge character in Dragon's Dogma, and he's fat and he's huge and he looks like a doof, to have authenticity, those characters would respond to that. Hey man, you spend a lot of time at the inn drinking. Hey man, you do this. Hey man, you do that. But Ubisoft is in particular saying that they're trying to remove it, which then gets
so they're limiting.
They're limiting it, which, to be realistic, is to, in a way, remove limits so that you get the offset person or you get the offset thing. So I don't know. This is a small bit, but they put a blurb in here and they were talking about it. To me, that seems worrisome, because that's getting away from, I mean, I'm not saying I want somebody to be teased for being obese like my character or whatever, but that would also be hilarious, because I'm making a video game character. You know?
You want the potential to be there.
Right. There we go. And I don't want it totally programmed out, because what if, let me give you an example. If I'm playing Dragon's Dogma, I made a doofy character. I told you, but guess what? Barely anybody in the game is going to respond to my doofy looking character, right? But imagine there's a jackass character in one of the cities that just keeps following me around, teasing me about how doofy I look. That to me would be amazing, because I would be like, holy shit, this is different. This guy's responding to me. He's like on me. What would I do? I mean, maybe it's because I'm not bothered by this stuff, but I would want that. And it seems like they're saying they purposely want to remove it.
Like my favorite NPCs in gaming so far is probably Red Dead 2. But that's just from a ton of people just scripting and adding so much shit. And obviously they handcraft every person's personality and what they do. And I feel like this could be useful for people with not that many resources, you know, because we don't need, I feel like we don't need it, but maybe some do. Like maybe some, does Ubisoft have the manpower behind it to make like a Rockstar game? Because they haven't.
Yeah. Do you mean like the money and resources to make one?
Like
I mean, if you look at Valhalla,
probably not talent, maybe.
Probably not talent in the way that Rockstar just waits. But we also don't know how Rockstar is going to turn out when they've lost one of their premier leads and their premier writer. We just have no clue how that's going to turn out, and it could actually be noticeable. But Ubisoft does have an issue there, and most companies do. They, you know, it's like Banishers. We just talked about this. Banishers has a particular writing, but the other stuff is not great. You know, not as great. I think Ubisoft has the same issue somewhere. But what I want to talk about real quick, so this is just for them, though, too. I don't know how they're going to roll this out to others, because I think large language models and AI acting towards each other is going to be generic. There's going to be a couple dozen companies probably selling. Unity has one already, by the way, in their engine. So I think we're weird. Going to see that.
It's weird. I feel like the more you do this, plus with all the limiting factors you talked about, but I feel like doing this Neo AI thing with limiting factors like that is gonna weirdly feel more robotic than just a normal created NPC, man. You know, that's what I'm afraid of.
Also, let's just be brutally honest. There are a couple isms that will be acceptable to everybody. Ageism will always be acceptable. it will, at least for now, anytime a man, even a couple years older than a woman, there is always going to be the acceptable ageism towards that person. That is currently shortism. Those kind of things they are a thing that for whatever reason humanity has decided are okay. It is okay to diss on two people married because there is an age difference. And we see it with the Bullet Train actor, the primo looking guy in Bullet Train. Not orange. I think he's tangerine. Or is he orange? One of the two. He's married to a much older woman, and people just treated it completely different than a guy, married to a young woman. But they've also attacked him. That kind of stuff is acceptable. Nobody's going to, it's just acceptable right now. There's certain things that are. And so it's weird. If they're programming, if they decided to create a very attractive character just to write out any responses, then it does see, what if I create a very short character? We saw Dragon's Dogma where short characters can go through some tunnels and stuff like that. Like, are we going to remove all that? And then if we do, like you just said, Aaron Taylor Johnson is the actor. Thank you. I'm just wondering where we go if we're saying we want AI to run all this. I think you're absolutely 1,000% right. And that, how we were saying, don't tell everybody what you're doing. Don't tell everybody about your DRM. Don't tell. In a weird way, I sometimes think these companies shouldn't tell people.
Shouldn't tell people, yeah. Plus, what kind of values are they gonna inject into the AI, right? Like what? Like obviously, it's made by people. What kind of
different cultural
do's and don'ts, right? Like you said.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting to see how. Well, it's not only woke. It's some cultures absolutely believe completely different things about marriages, relationships, what have you. Weight. I mean, it's vastly different. And by the way, I'm assuming they're doing this, in France somewhere. So it's like their thought process will be different than somebody who does it in Florida. Florida, they're probably just happy to get through the day in Florida. But I love the idea of it. I think I think it's awesome. It says the team are using GDC 2024 to present the project, but also as a checkpoint to take stock of industry feedback and gather their learnings. And I'm pretty sure somebody like a Ken Levine would probably hammer back on something like that. And because he is pretty pretty unfiltered. Well, no, I mean, Ken 100%. Will write whatever, even if it's uncomfortable for you, he doesn't care. He sort of believes some games should be that. Yeah, it's going to be awesome to see, man. I'm excited. It's always France and Florida. Yeah, it's the two Fs, right? Is that it for us? I'm excited for this. We'll hit it again.
Dude, World of Warcraft released a BR mode. And news.
A battle
royale. Remember battle royales? Remember those games? they made a battle royale mode for World of Warcraft.
What the hell are you gonna do in World of Warcraft battle royale? It feels like that's already
a worse version of Realm Royale from what it looked like.
Right, it feels like it's already been done or something.
It's weird. It's very, very weird. I feel like they're a little bit late to the mark. And I've always said like World of Warcraft needs fun stuff that, different fun things that aren't all geared towards this, gear and, have to log in every day.
Almost like
stuff.
the mini games in Final Fantasy
in a way. Is this it? Like, is this the move? What they said is they want to attract players to the ecosystem, right? And I don't know if this is the right way. I mean, maybe it is fun, but like for how long? And it's Battle Royale, dude. Like that fad. I just feel like Fortnite is got it. Games coming out now shouldn't. I don't think they should go into that. But in 2024, I don't know, man. It just seems a little bit late.
Yeah, well, WoW is like a weird monster anyway. So it also feels. The honest truth is, it feels like with them, they'll just release it, and if it doesn't, whatever. One day you'll be telling me on a podcast, 654. That that today's the last day it'll be available and they're sunsetting it. Like it legitimately feels like that. So they'll try it. People will be like, "Oh, it's fun for a day," and then it'll sort of die out.
And it's tied to a sub. It's not free, so you can't like try and play it, see if you like it. It's tied to the World of Warcraft sub. So I don't know how they want to get people into the ecosystem, but there's a payment there, a monthly payment to play it. So that's very weird. Right.
Companies always make decisions that you look at and you're like, at some point, I want a gamer to to be in control of that company. A gamer who's existed within the ecosystem that sucks.
Right.
But I just wonder if by the time they get there, it's neutered out of them. It's just mowed down. All those, remember the old movies in like the 80s? They'd switch a man and his son. Like they go to a tribal shaman.
Like a Freaky Friday?
Yeah, like a Freaky Friday. We need like a day in the life of where you're able to say, fuck you. Karak is in charge of Activision. It would never happen, but you know what I mean. Karak, did you finish Thaumaturge? I did. Thought that was a review in progress. I think it was. We'll talk about it next Friday. I can add it. Or this Friday.
Nice.
Anything more to say about it? Never came up. We have talked about it a little bit, but I think that was because one of these guys were playing it. But yeah, we'll cover it more. Lucitan says, Jake Lucky says, Riot Games co-founder Mark Merrill confirms the Riot MMO has been delayed and reset in its direction. The Riot MMO. Riot would be League of
Legends.
Okay. And
or
they have a
2XKO. Called 2X.
I remembered one thing, 2XKO, man. 2X.
Yeah, and they have Valorant, of course, yeah. But it seems like every game they've put out, though, they've knocked out of the park. Like a lot of people, they know how to hit. They know how to hit.
So you mean it's okay that they're holding off and resetting? Is this who you're talking about?
Maybe they haven't shown me any reason. Like
any reason to suggest that when it comes out it won't be good or fun.
It won't hit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Double OJ613 in our Discord. Thank you as always for anybody who joins Discord or becomes a YouTube member. Just announced story trailer, no gameplay for Marvel 1943: Rise of the Hydra. So I don't know what this is. I know I saw some trailers, but I have not got a chance to check it out if it's a turn-based or anything. I have no clue.
Yeah, no idea.
Drewman says, if I had to bet, I'd say Sony gives us a PC launcher later this year with no dual entitlement on games and a lockdown PSVR 2 driver for the games starting with GT7. So, I'd say Sony gives us a PC launcher later this year with no dual entitlement. He means you buy the PC version, you don't have the PlayStation. You buy the PlayStation, you don't have the... I don't believe that part.
What do you mean?
Well, I think he's saying that he thinks there'll be like a mini Sony store, I guess, where PC titles are purchased, and if they exist on the console, you won't have a shared title. You won't also have it on the console. And I don't necessarily think that would be a thing Sony would do. I feel like if Sony...
No, they've been doing very well on Steam and double dipping and all that stuff. They've been doing well on that front. I thought about that too when they were talking about like this whole live service thing and having day and date with PC. I did bring it up once on a podcast where you think they'll have their own storefront or their own ecosystem on here, like Xbox. Yeah, I don't know.
Admittedly, Steam is getting a hellacious amount of heat for 30% from all companies when they sell games. And Tim, what's his name? Lipnicki, whatever the hell he is. Tim from Epic. Tim Sweeney. Attacked them for prices, called them assholes. 30% is a lot, so maybe Sony, who knows, maybe Sony will say PC's working well. But dual entitlement going away would kill me. Can you imagine? Like, that would be, like, Microsoft is already footing the bill for, what is it called, Play Anywhere? I feel like Sony would not. I mean,
it'd be nice because, but I think, is Helldivers connected? Like, cross-progression or just cross-platform?
Oh, that's a good question. You mean, that's a good question. I don't know. So I know it's cross-platform, but I don't know if it's cross-save. I would assume so, right?
Yeah. I don't know because for Returnal, for example, I had to connect my PlayStation account, but my save didn't carry over.
I think this is an MMO. Does anybody know? Lucitan, you're in here.
What is he talking about exactly? Oh,
Helldivers, cross what would that be called? Cross everything. Cross progression.
Cross progression.
Yeah. I think it is. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it is.
But if you buy it in Steam, you don't automatically get it for PlayStation. That's another thing, right? So I have to rebuy it on PlayStation to play it on PlayStation.
Oh, damn. But what he's saying is, what if Sony does their own launcher? I feel that would be one way to get people to use it, would be to say it's one purchase across both. And that's what Microsoft is doing. It's not usual, but I just feel like Sony wouldn't say, okay, we've got the Sony PC store, but if you buy Helldivers here, it's not also on the PlayStation 5. That would be Ridiculous.
If they were to
But
make
you
a
are right.
store on PC, I would expect them to have cross save, cross progression, cross buy a game on one, get it on both. If they had a storefront.
If they had a storefront,
I would expect it.
Atreyu says there's no cross progression with Helldivers.
Okay.
And then last was he expects a PS VR driver for their games starting GT7. So what's interesting about that, they stopped sales of, or they stopped producing the PSVR 2. They can't sell those on the, on the storefront. There's no driver inside of the box. There's all that. So all that would have to be shipped back, reboxed as a new version that had PC support and stuff like that. Or they just leave it on the gamer. I don't know about the PSVR 2 driver. I think they said they were going to do PC games. I just don't know how they would do it. I think the PSVR 2 is pretty comfortable. I mean, but VR is in bad shape. It feels to me like whatever they do will be low effort. That's the honest truth. I feel like whatever Sony does. No. I don't know if they'll do games at all. I think they'll sell the PSVR 2 as hardware.
With
in
general, in general, I feel like because of the market, games are
rough,
generally low effort, other than like a few. Yeah.
Asgard's Wrath 2 was
There's
big
a
and was
Tarkov,
AAA.
like a Tarkov game on, and people have been playing it, and it looks pretty dope, dude.
Got legit reviews too. I was somebody was streaming Stalker in the Discord, and then Tool, the old user Tool, he had popped in and was showing us that, and it looks fantastic. Full VR. Yeah. He's played it. But it even has I think he said this. It's got magazine switching where you have to load it with the extra, like shells, if you don't want to lose the bullets, and you're just like,
it's like Tarkov.
That's
and you have to like your inventory, like you open your bag and your inventory is there. Like it's very interesting.
Can you believe Nintendo was ahead of everybody? They had the one zombie game with their tablet Wii U where you opened the inventory on the tablet and you held it.
Zombie U, I think.
Was it called? Oh my God, their naming Zombie conventions blow. But that is what it was called, I think. Zombie U. Yeah. But the idea of it is well ahead of its time. Anyway, that'll be it for us. We have covered all the main ones. I appreciate it. I think we covered all the ones in the Discord. Thanks for sticking with us on the Wednesday podcast. I know they're not as usual, but that's just because of the reviews and how busy I've been. You guys will be able to see us back on Friday, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You get a chance, tweet out the video. I feel like I'm missing something vital. I feel like there's something I wanted to say that I'm completely missing, but we're already at what? We at 3 hours, 35 minutes. So,
really?
Honestly, if I haven't made it by now, it's on me for missing it. Peace out, everybody. Yeah. Do not die. Be better people. Thank you for sitting back and enjoying your day with us. Peace out. Whoa. Hey, calm down. I feel like, almost.